Chapter 581. Chapter 582. Introducido enacting. Naturally, the difference in strength between the two sides was too big, so Brother Yi was very self-aware. Just like how they faced Nangong and the other two men just now, they were in such a situation now. If they did not leave tactfully, then they would really have to pay the price. Brother Yi really did not expect that the leading man turned out to be Qin Chang'an's son. He was really bold. The dignified son of Master Qin of Sijio City actually dared to run to the northwest alone. If he had known this earlier, he could have made a bigger plan this time. At that time, it would definitely be a big surprise. Unfortunately, he missed it. However, where there's life, there's hope. His brothers were originally injured, plus they were exhausted after such a long journey. It was normal that they were no match for these men. There would be opportunities in the future. Therefore, Brother Yi just ran away with a clear conscience. Qin Shing had already said that no one could leave today. It could be seen how angry he was. You guys bullied Nangong, so I will vent my anger on you guys. Besides, he would not be like Brother Yi, who only knew how to talk big before the fight started. After the fight started, he immediately admitted defeat and ran away. This kind of thing was not something he could do. Therefore, how could Qin Shing let them leave so easily? However, at the critical moment, Nangong's sudden shout made Qin Shing and the others subconsciously stop. Qin Shing looked back and was puzzled. Why not chase? When he first saw Qin Shing, Nangong's strong defense line was instantly broken. But now Nangong had recovered and said bluntly, "We have other things to do." Qin Shing originally wanted to catch up with these people and find out who was behind them. In this way, when he returned to Beijing, he would have a clear goal. He would not always be targeted and did not know who did it. But since Nangong said so, after Qin Shing weighed the pros and cons, he could only regretfully give up the chase. This time they really got lucky. Since they had let them go, Qin Shing did not think about this matter anymore. He quickly walked back to Nangong's side. He believed that Nangong would give him a reasonable explanation. Chang Baji had already untied the rope on Bahi. At this moment, Bahi was still a little confused, as if he did not understand the situation. Why did their status suddenly change so much? Of course, he was also very clear that these men were the reinforcements that Nangong had mentioned. There were fewer people than he had imagined, but they were much more powerful than he had imagined. Qin Shing squatted in front of Nangong and asked, "Is he badly hurt? If it's serious, I'll send you to the nearby county hospital first." Nangong struggled to get up and said, "There should be no big problem. Help me to the front yard to have a rest. That is Mr. Ding's yard." Qin Shing nodded. However, when he saw that Nangong was in such a difficult situation, he hesitated for a while and directly held Nangong up by his waist, regardless of Nangong's refusal and embarrassment. At this moment, the others did not think much of it. This place was not far from the yard. Qin Shing and the others had noticed it a long time ago. They were still guessing who had built a small yard here, but they did not expect it to be Mr. Ding. After walking for a short while, they arrived at the small courtyard and entered the room. The tea on the table was still warm, which showed how many things had happened in this short period of time. Qin Shing and the others did not pay attention to the environment here because they had rushed over to save Nangong just now. It was not until then that they had the time to look around and come to a conclusion. This was really a paradise. Mr. Ding really knew how to choose a place. Even Qin Shing wanted to stay here for a while. The yard was antique. It should have been built with a lot of effort. However, it did not destroy the ecological environment here. Instead, it was integrated with this place. The room was basically filled with log furniture, which was simple but elegant. The daily necessities also showed the owner's taste, which was similar to the current minimalism. Through the window they could not only see the meadow and the river, but also the mountains in the distance and the snow on the mountains. Together with a few ornaments, it was really beautiful and intoxicating. After looking around, Qin Shing became more and more curious about this Mr. Ding. So far, he had only seen Mr. Ding's photo, which was on the bookshelf in Qin Chang'an's office. Therefore, Qin Shing could not wait to ask, "Nangong, where is Mr. Ding?" Hearing this, Nangong was a little disappointed. After struggling for half a month, he still could not find Mr. Ding and almost lost his life here. This time, he was really a failure. Before Nangong said anything, Bok, who was next to him, took the initiative to say, "Don't mention it. You don't know that when we arrived here, Mr. Ding had left a week ago, leaving only a man waiting for us. He said that he had something to tell Master Qin. The man ran away in the chaos just now. Now we don't know where he is." Qin Shing was surprised. "What? Do you mean that Mr. Ding is not here now? And he knows that you are coming?" "Yes, I think Mr. Ding just doesn't want to see us. Otherwise, why would he leave?" Bok took a big sip of tea and said, "He could take a beating very well. After all, he had been beaten by Nangong many times along the way. Therefore, at this time, he had almost recovered, but there was a little pain in his chest. Just now in the woods, the man's stick hit him and then he suffered some physical pain. Other than that, there was no big problem. At that time, after being caught, he knew that with his ability, no matter how he resisted, he could not escape. In that case, it was better to be captured obediently and suffer less torture and pain, and then look for opportunities later." It had to be said that Bok's mentality was really good. Qin Shing was more or less disappointed. He thought that he could see the legendary Mr. Ding this time, but did not expect that he would miss it in the end. "Mr. Ding doesn't want to see us, it means that he doesn't want to go back to Beijing. Even if we find him, so what? I have already called my adoptive father. He said that he knows, and asked me to bring Zhongshan back to Beijing." Nangong explained truthfully. Before the accident, she had just called her adoptive father far away in Beijing. Her adoptive father's attitude was still so calm, as if this result was within his expectations. Qin Shing sat on the log chair next to him and sighed. "Forget it, maybe when Mr. Ding wants to go back, he will naturally go back." "Zhongshan?" Qin Shing recalled what Nangong had just said and suddenly thought of this name. He asked, "Who is this Zhongshan? What is his relationship with Mr. Ding?" When Bok heard Zhongshan, he immediately became angry and said, "Don't mention it, this man is a coward. After the accident just now, this guy ran faster than a rabbit. After going out, he directly rode a horse and ran away, not caring about our lives at all. Who knows where he has run to now?" Qin Shing did not believe Bok's side of the story, but looked at Nangong. Nangong had already recovered a little strength and said in a low voice, "I think this man is quite smart. He is just an ordinary person. If he does not leave in time, he will only drag us down. At that time, no one will be able to leave." "I see." Qin Shing nodded silently. Thinking about it, how could a person who stayed with Mr. Ding be so simple? At this time, Nangong remembered something and said, "I forgot to introduce to you, this chatterbox next to me is called Bok. He is from Inner Mongolia, the nephew of Mongolia's Emperor Man. In the past half a month, he took me around to find Mr. Ding." Bok was originally an outgoing person, but after coming to the desert, he faced those silent people every day, not to mention that there were so many acquaintances, so he did not like to talk. Since leaving the desert with Nangong, he seemed to have reopened the conception and governing vessels. He always talked endlessly. Hearing Nangong introduce himself, Bok said familiarly, "My name is Bok, man is my uncle. Today, thanks to you guys coming in time, otherwise I might have died. How can I call you guys?" "Oh, I already know you, you just introduced yourself outside. Master Qin's son, Qin Shing, is a little different than I thought." Bok pointed at Qin Shing and laughed. He was not polite at all, just short of putting his arm around Qin Shing's shoulder and calling him brother, not to mention that he could really do it. Of course, Qin Shing did not know who Emperor Man of Mongolia was, but since Nangong introduced him like this, it meant that this man was not simple. The dark-skinned man in front of him was Man's nephew, and he also took Nangong to find Mr. Ding for half a month. It meant that this man, Qin Chang'an, and Mr. Ding knew each other. Bok looked careless, but Qin Shing would never underestimate this kind of character. He chuckled and said, "Is he not as noble as you think? To be honest, I think that Master Qin's son should be a very pretentious playboy. I didn't expect you to be so down-to-earth." Bok said bluntly, but of course, he liked this kind of young master of the Qin family, because it was easier and more interesting to get along with him. If he was really that kind of playboy, Bok would not like him. Qin Shing was a little helpless about Bok's straightforwardness. He replied, "Then I'm really sorry to disappoint you." Bok did not care and said, not disappointed, I like down-to-earth people. I don't want to bother with those who are too high and mighty. Anyway, you saved me today, I owe you a favor. If you need any help in the future, just let me know." Qin Shing did not know whether to laugh or cry. Okay. Bok then let Qin Shing go, then looked at Chang Baji and Hao Lei and said, "May I know how to address you two?" Chang Baji said very calmly, "Chang Baji." Hao Lei did not seem to like Bok, who was very friendly. He said coldly, "Hao Lei." Both of their answers were so simple, there was no extra words. This made Bok not know how to say the lines he had prepared. He could only smile bitterly. Qin Shing returned to the topic, looked at Nangong and said, "What's your next plan? When are we leaving?" Nangong thought for a moment and said, "Find Zhongshan first." Just as Nangong's voice fell, suddenly there was a chaotic sound outside. There were horses neighing, shouting and so on. It was very chaotic. Qin Shing frowned slightly and said to Nangong, "You stay here, I'll go out and take a look." After that, Qin Shing walked out with Chang Baji and Hao Lei. Bok also ran out. Outside, dozens of people appeared. They were all riding horses and seemed to have weapons in their hands. They surrounded the entire courtyard. Qin Shing did not know what was going on. He was like facing a formidable enemy. Bok was a little shocked at first, but when he saw Zhongshan at the door, he immediately ran out with a smile and shouted, "Zhongshan, I told you, you will not abandon us." Chapter 582. Never would he have thought Bok was actually very interesting to get along with, otherwise, Man would not have allowed him to stay by his side. It was not that other nephews could not endure hardships. Some of them wanted to have a bright future and could act for 2 to 3 years in exchange for 10 to 20 years of meteoric success. Bok was not acting. He really wanted to stay by his uncle Man's side, and he really liked what his uncle was doing now. On the contrary, when Man was the emperor of Mengshi, Bok did not have much interaction with this uncle of his who had a say in Mengshi. There was one time when he was in Hua Haut University and he got into some trouble. Originally, he hid it and endured it. Anyway, it was not a big deal. But after a relative found out about it, he could not bear it and directly told his uncle Man. On the same day, his uncle sent someone to deal with the matter and the result was self-evident. Not only did the relative apologize, they even compensated for the medical expenses and so on. But even though the matter was resolved, Bok was not grateful to his uncle at all. He felt that this was his own matter and it was his own decision to deal with it. Moreover, he did not think that it was a big deal. The appearance of his uncle had completely changed the nature of the matter. Since then, Man did not go to see his uncle much, unlike other relatives and friends who always surrounded his uncle like begging dogs wagging their tails. It was as if the slightest benefit would make them so excited that they could not sleep for a few days. However, when his uncle chose to retire and went to the desert to plant trees, Bok, who had graduated from university, followed in his uncle's footsteps without hesitation. At that time, everyone did not understand why his uncle did so, but only Bok understood. Others guessed that Ba He just wanted to show off in front of Ah Man and then rely on Ah Man's resources to find a future, but Ba He didn't think so at all. He just wanted to accompany his old uncle and follow him to fulfill his last wish. During this period, everyone did not understand, even Ah Man did not understand. He even chased Bach away several times. Of course, during this period, he also gave Bach many opportunities. As long as Bach seized any one of them, he would benefit a lot. However, Bach was a fool who didn't even have a girlfriend. He just liked to plant trees in the desert, and no matter how hard they tried to chase him away, he wouldn't leave. This time, the goodwill of the Qin family was placed in front of him. Ah Man did not hesitate to give it to Ba He, but Ba He naturally rejected it at first. But before he left, Ah Man chatted with Ba He for a full hour and finally convinced him to leave. He gave Bach 5 years, and no matter what Bach chose after 5 years, he wouldn't have any opinion. This was Ba He. He felt that Qin Sheng and the rest had saved his life, so he did not hide anything from them. He directly jumped from strangers to acquaintances, which was why he acted so friendly. Just now, Ba He had a lot of opinions about Zhongshan. He was a man, yet he abandoned a woman and ran away. He was a coward. Now, when Ba He saw that Zhongshan had arrived with reinforcements, his impression of him instantly changed. He ran over and hugged Zhongshan, who had just dismounted, and said, "Big brother, I knew that you were not that kind of person." Zhongshan did not understand and asked, "Who is it?" Ba He shook his head and played dumb. "Nothing, nothing." Zhongshan was a little puzzled. Where did those strangers who suddenly appeared just now go? Who were the 3 men standing in the yard now? Where did Nangong go? So Zhongshan quickly asked, "What happened? Where are those people? Who are they?" Ba He laughed and explained, "These 3 men are our reinforcements. Those people have been defeated and Nangong is resting in the house. We were thinking about how to find you." Regarding this ending, Zhongshan was a little surprised and a little shocked. He had made a wasted trip and brought so many people here. But it was fine as long as nothing happened. Zhongshan nodded to Qin Sheng and the rest in the yard and said to Ba He, "You guys go in first, I will explain to them." Ba He waved to the others and then led Qin Sheng and the rest into the house. After entering, he explained to Nangong what had happened and Nangong was relieved. However, Nangong did not let Ba He go and said sarcastically, "Didn't you say that Zhongshan ran away alone?" Ba He chuckled and said, "I was wrong this time. I was gauging the heart of a gentleman with my own mean measure." Nangong rolled his eyes. It seemed that he was already used to bickering with Ba He. Previously, he was bickering with Qin Sheng. It was just a few days before he met Ba He. Not long after, the reinforcements that Zhongshan had brought here left the way they came. Zhongshan then entered the house and saw Nangong lying on the bed. He quickly walked over and said worriedly, "Are you hurt?" "It's just a minor injury. I will be fine after resting for a while," Nangong explained with a bitter smile. Zhongshan was still a little worried and said, "Why don't we go to the county hospital for a checkup? Then we will be able to answer to Master Qin." At this time, Qin Sheng also added, "Let's go to the hospital for a checkup. Didn't you ask the others to wait at the Jade Gate for a long time? We will go there directly." "Okay." Nangong hesitated for a moment and nodded. Zhongshan was looking at Qin Sheng, Chang Baji and Hao Lei curiously, guessing their identities. It seemed that Nangong was very obedient to this man. Could it be that his identity was not simple? At this time, Nangong took the initiative and said, "Zhongshan, let me introduce them to you. This is my foster father's son, Qin Sheng." Qin Sheng smiled and stretched out his hand. "Qin Sheng, nice to meet you. Nangong has already told me about you." Hearing Nangong's introduction, Zhongshan was stunned. He did not expect that the man in front of him was actually Qin Chang'an's son. It seemed a little ridiculous. Such a big shot actually appeared here. He also did not expect that the first time he met Qin Shing would be under such circumstances. Many years later, when Zhong Shan recalled this scene, he would still not know whether to laugh or cry. It was just a joke. At this moment, Zhong Shan quickly adjusted his state of mind. He held Qin Shing's hand and said, "I really did not expect to see you here. Nice to meet you." Next, Zhong Shan, Chang Baji and Hao Lei also introduced themselves to each other and knew their identities. Everyone chatted casually in the room. After a while, Nangong felt that he had rested enough and told everyone that they could get up and go to the nearest county. So everyone packed up and left. They took the 2 cars that Qin Shing and Nangong drove and set off for Guazhou County in the south. Nangong, Qin Shing, and Chang Baji were in one car, while Bak, Hao Lei, and Zhong Shan were in the other. There were no accidents along the way. When it was getting dark, they arrived at Guazhou County and found a hotel to stay in. They would check on Nangong tomorrow. Guazhou County was not big, it should be said to be very small. It might not even be comparable to some small towns in the south. It was also not prosperous. Qin Shing and the others randomly found a restaurant to eat. This was also the first time they had a meal together. Of course, Qin Shing did not expect that these people would become the core strength of his future. Bak sighed and said, "It's finally over. In this half a month, my mouth is almost out of water. I haven't drunk for a long time. Do you want to drink?" The others subconsciously looked at Qin Shing. After all, Qin Shing was the real backbone. Of course, Zhong Shan and Bak were still not used to this kind of environment. Qin Shing did not have any objections. He smiled and said, "Then drink less. When we arrive in Beijing, I will treat you to a good drink. We will not go home until we are drunk." Sure, Bak said happily. He only cared about whether there was wine to drink now. As for the wine in the future, he would think about it when they returned to Beijing. A group of men, with wine and meat, naturally chatted happily. After a few glasses of wine, they became more talkative. Hao Lei began to complain. Along the way, Bak was like a chatterbox. He always chattered nonstop. He had never met someone who could talk so much. Bak also retorted, "Bullsh *t. In the end, you can talk more than me. The 2 of us are birds of a feather." Qin Shing drank the wine and smiled as he watched them bicker. It seemed that Hao Lei's character began to change. He was no longer so quiet. He was willing to listen to others and was willing to talk more. This was good. Nangong and Chang Baji did not drink. Nangong did not dare to drink because he was injured. Chang Baji rarely drank. From the beginning when Qin Shing met him until now, he could count the number of times he drank with 2 hands. Moreover, they were in a foreign place. There was already a crisis. If there were any accidents, someone would have to clean up the mess. Zhong Shan chatted with Qin Shing casually. Qin Shing mostly asked about Mr. Ding's situation. Zhong Shan would talk about some things and skim over some things. After eating and drinking, they returned to the hotel to rest. Everyone was exhausted and could have a good sleep tonight. After returning to the hotel, Qin Shing first called the old man in Beijing and told him what happened today. The old man over there was silent for a moment, then asked them to return to Beijing as soon as possible. Qin Shing then called the Lin family in Xi'an. As expected, Uncle Lin told him that the Tan family and the Zhang family had found an old friend to be their lobbyist and wanted to meet him. He declined politely. Then he would take the family of 3 to Sanya tomorrow morning to rest for a while. After making these 2 necessary calls, Qin Shing and Lin Su only had a video chat for half an hour. They had not seen each other for more than half a month. Nowadays, the time they spent together was much less than the time they spent apart. Qin Shing always missed Lin Su and reminisced about the days in the past. Finally, Qin Shing fell asleep with his thoughts. After dawn, Qin Shing and Chang Baji accompanied Nangong to the hospital for a checkup. The others still stayed in the hotel. The morning passed quickly and the checkup results came out. Other than some superficial wounds, Nangong's soft tissues and bones were slightly damaged, but they were not serious injuries. He would recover after resting for a period of time. Of course, the doctor had also prescribed a lot of medicine. As for whether Nangong would take it, it was unknown. After returning to the hotel, Qin Shing told everyone the results. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief, afraid that Nangong would have an accident. After lunch, they set off for the next place, Jade Gate. Of course, the most famous place there was Jade Gate Pass. But obviously, Qin Shing and his friends were not going there for sightseeing, but to help Nangong get revenge. Chapter 583. We are all gambling. Those people were naturally the group of outlaws in the no man's land. A few days ago, they had extorted 2 million from Nangong and even made Nangong and Ba He leave the town in a sorry state. This 2 million was Nangong's private money, and he had to get it back no matter what. Moreover, for Nangong, money was not a problem. After all, her adoptive father was Qin Chang'an. But she could not take it lying down. She had to get it back. 2 million for 2 lives. They were really greedy. It was too easy to earn money. Weren't they afraid that they would not be able to spend it? Therefore, at that time, Nangong made up her mind. As long as she was done with her business, she must kill her way back. Even if those people escaped, she would dig 3 feet underground to find them. Yumen was a county-level city. Like Guazhou, it was under the jurisdiction of Jiuquan City. Relying on rich tourism resources, it was slightly more prosperous than Guazhou County town. When Qin Shing and the others arrived, it was only afternoon. After all, the two places were relatively close to each other. In order to vent Nangong's anger, the Qin family sent a team of 7 people from Beijing to Jiuquan by plane and then to Yumen. But they only arrived this morning, otherwise they would have rushed over to support Nangong. It was not until they arrived at the hotel where the team was staying that Qin Shing and Nangong found out that Brother Wu was the leader of the team this time. This also showed how much importance Qin Chang'an attached to this matter, but he did not tell Qin Shing and Nangong. Compared to Qin Shing and Nangong, Bach was more excited because he and Brother Wu were old acquaintances. Even Brother Wu did not expect to see Bach here. After all, he had not seen Bach for a long time. So Bach shouted, "Why are you here?" Brother Wu was also stunned and replied, "Why are you here?" The two of them looked at each other and laughed. They took a few steps forward and gave each other a big hug. Then, they punched each other's chests twice. This was how they met, and it was also how deep their friendship was. The others did not expect that Bach and Brother Wu actually knew each other. But it was easy to understand. Both of them were born in Inner Mongolia. Brother Wu's father and Bach's uncle were brothers, so it was not surprising that they knew each other. After getting to know each other and greeting each other, everyone sat in the suite and discussed their next strategy. Only Brother Wu was left in the room. This time, it was not a big deal, but also not a small one. It all depended on Nangong's choice. So Qin Shing looked at Nangong and said, "What do you want?" So Qin Shing nodded and said, "Bach, take out the map you drew. Then we will discuss the action plan and try to settle these things before dinner. We will set off overnight after dinner and try to come back as soon as possible." Qin Shing nodded and said, "Ba He, take out the map you drew. Next, we will discuss the action plan and try to settle these things before dinner. After dinner, we will set off overnight and try to get back as early as possible." Bach had followed his uncle on this route twice before, so he was more or less familiar with it. However, he did not expect that when he returned this time, he would find that the town was completely different. That was why he suffered a loss there. For the whole afternoon, everyone was in the room to confirm the plan and discuss it intensely, trying to be foolproof, including how to deal with any possible situation. Finally, all the plans were confirmed before dinner. During dinner, Qin Shing and Nangong decided that Zhongshan would not participate in this matter. After all, this matter had nothing to do with him. and if something really happened, he would be a burden. Zhong Shan did not have any opinion on this, and did not seem to care about it. His biggest expectation now was to see Qin Chang'an and Master Qin. Everything else seemed to be insignificant to him. Nangong asked Brother Wu to leave a team member to protect him, and the others set off to the town in the no man's land. This was a practical exercise for the small team. After all, they might encounter more dangerous situations in the future. On the way to the no man's land, Bach and Brother Wu's car was at the front. Brother Wu kept Bach smoking and chatting with him to relieve his boredom. "Does that mean that you will also stay in the Qin family after you go to Beijing?" Brother Wu asked thoughtfully after listening to Bach's words. Bach, who was driving, did not look back and said, "Yes, Uncle arranged it this way. I have no choice. I still like to plant trees in the desert." Brother Wu sighed and said, "Actually, it's good to come to Beijing. After all, it's a big city with everything you need. If you stay in the desert all the time, you will become useless sooner or later. Even if you want to do that, Uncle Man will not allow it." That day, he chatted with his uncle about many things, not only about him now, but also about his future and the fate of the whole family and so on. He asked him to go to Beijing this time, just to gamble. In 5 years, if he did well, he could jump out of the big circle in Inner Mongolia. If not, he could go back to Mengshi and take over all the resources he had before. Of course, if he was willing to come back to plant trees, his uncle would not object. Bach was also a little helpless, but he finally thought it through. No matter where he would go after 5 years, he must learn a lot in these 5 years. Besides, as his uncle said, he had to tie himself to the big boat of the Qin family. Bach turned back and glanced at Brother Wu. Perhaps Brother Wu's family had arranged it this way. After all, he was also a real rich second generation. Now that Brother Wu had returned to Huahout, he dared not say that he was omnipotent, but when the majority of his peers saw him, they had to bow their heads and call him brother. As for those who were on par with him, they also knew each other. But he was willing to be an ordinary lackey in the Qin family, and this had lasted for a few years. Even Bach admired him. "Brother Wu, you have been in the Qin family for a few years. Tell me, how is the Qin family?" Bach asked casually. Anyway, it was a long journey, and he estimated that he would only arrive tomorrow morning. Let's chat to relieve boredom, and also to let him be mentally prepared, in case he met with misfortune. Brother Wu fell into deep thought and began his mental journey. After a long time, he said, "In fact, when my father first raised this matter, I was quite opposed. As everyone can see, as long as I live in Inner Mongolia, I can live very well. Why should I wrong myself? But after a few things happened, I understood that at my father's stage, it was very difficult to move up, and if I wanted to surpass him, it could be said to be extremely difficult. Those few things hit me very hard, and it made me completely calm down. In the end, I took the initiative to raise this matter to my father. My father was very surprised, but he did not say anything and agreed. Then, I went to the Qin family in Beijing. At the beginning, in the Qin family, I was just a nobody. Every day, I was a lackey who ran errands. No one knew my background, and anyway, I could not come into contact with anything. I was a little annoyed and regretful, but I took the initiative to ask to come. If I left, not only would I lose face, even my father would lose face. I kept going like this. Every day, the places I went the most were the gym and the fight hall, to vent the excess energy that could not be vented. In this way, I persisted in the Qin family for a whole year. Suddenly, Uncle Gong's son from the oil field came to talk to me. He talked to me about many things, including my situation, my father's career, and so on. Finally, I made a choice. I chose to stay in the Qin family, and then I began to come into contact with some things in the Qin family. Sometimes I would go to other places to do some things, meet some people, and so on. Brother Wu regarded Bach as a friend. The two of them were quite congenial when they were in Huhahout, and they often drank and chatted. Later, they embarked on different paths in life, but now they had reached the same destination. It was also interesting. Bach was learning experience. He was already prepared to be like Brother Wu, a nobody for 1 or 2 years. He was not afraid of this, after all. He could persist in the desert for so many years. Then, Bach seemed to have heard it and could not help but ask. Brother Wu was bored, so he continued. Later, things went smoothly. I followed the Qin family's track of promotion step by step. Everyone knew that entering the Chang and department was the biggest springboard, but I just didn't choose this path. My choice was to stay in the Qin family. When my position was high enough, I would enter the Chang and system. At that time, I would definitely be in a high position. After a few years, until the end of last year, there was a sudden change in the Qin family. Then, I realized that my opportunity had come, and obviously, Uncle Gongsun gave me this opportunity. Bach was a little confused and asked, "What change?" Brother Wu explained with a smile. The change was caused by Master Qin's son, Qin Xing. He was the man who looked very ordinary in the car after you saw him. What do you mean? Bach still did not understand. Brother Wu continued, "There are some things that you don't know, but Uncle Man definitely knows. In fact, Qin Xing has not been in the Qin family for so many years. Most people think that Master Qin only has one daughter. Even those who know Qin Xing's existence have long thought that Qin Xing has disappeared or died. It was not until the end of last year when Qin Xing came back that everyone suddenly realized that the Qin family had made a big move, which also disrupted the layout of many people. That is why the Qin family is in crisis this year, because the cards are going to be reshuffled." Bach was not very shocked, but felt very surprised. He said, "I see. I was wondering why he was so down to earth. Turns out that he has always been outside." It was rare for Brother Wu to say so many words. Maybe he also wanted Bach to quickly rise in the following chaos. Whether for Bach or for himself, there would be no harm in the future. After all, as long as the foundation of these years was laid, in the next 20 or 30 years, as long as they did not make any big mistakes, they would not have to worry. Qin Xing's sudden return disrupted the balance and the layout. First of all, Qin Xing's aunt came back from Canada and brought back a daughter that no one knew about. This caused a change in the Qin family. Secondly, many people wanted to redo Master Qin's layout. After all, the situation was different. In the end, many people will start to plot against Qin Xing. If Master Qin is safe and sound, Qin Xing will be in power smoothly. Then the Qin family will rise to a higher level. No one wants to miss such an opportunity. I think Uncle Man is thinking about this. Speaking of this, Brother Wu's face was a little serious, but there was some complacency in his eyes. Because his family had been ahead of many people. After listening to Brother Wu's explanation, Bach finally understood what was going on. After all, he was not stupid, it was just that he did not know some specific things. He sighed and said, "So that's how it is. I finally know why Uncle gave me 5 years." Brother Wu admired Uncle Man very much. After all, even his father admired him very much. So he smiled and said, "Uncle Man is planning for a rainy day. But you are a little lucky. This time, only Nangong was supposed to do the task, but you met Qin Xing by accident. Many people want to get close to him, but you don't know how difficult it is." Bach smiled and was not very proud. On the contrary, he had an intuition that after entering the Qin family, it would not be easy. He asked casually, "Is there no risk in this matter?" Brother Wu smiled playfully. Finally, he asked the key point. He then replied, "How is there no risk? The risk is that many people will not let the Qin family succeed smoothly. They will definitely stop the Qin family. Some people do not want to be kicked out of the Qin family. They will definitely wrestle with the Qin family. Whether it is Master Qin or Qin Xing, it will be very dangerous. As for our risk, once the Qin family falls, our efforts over these years will be in vain, and we may be implicated. However, the greater the risk, the greater the gain. How many times can we not gamble in life? We are all gambling that the Qin family will go through the wind and rain and see the rainbow, and then our life will be smooth sailing. Bach suddenly felt that this Brother Wu was a little strange, but also a little familiar. The strange thing was that he was not like the Brother Wu of the past. The familiar thing was that he seemed to have the shadow of his uncle. Chapter 584. Take it yourself. He did not expect to meet Brother Wu here, nor did he expect that Brother Wu would say so much to him. He also knew that Brother Wu really treated him as a friend, otherwise, he would not have said so much. Brother Wu's words instantly solved many of He's doubts. For example, why did his uncle insist that he go to Beijing? At the same time, Brother Wu also pointed out the path that he had to take next. These were all experiences that he had experienced step by step and could not be bought with money. Finally, he also told him about the Qin family situation and the crisis that they might face. These were priceless advice, but it also caused He to fall into confusion. These confusion were not solved by Brother Wu, He needed to sort it out bit by bit in the future. It was not easy to travel at night. He relied on his memory and navigation to find the small town in the uninhabited area. He and Brother Wu did not talk about these people anymore. They talked about trivial things in life, such as whether he had a girlfriend, when he was going to get married and so on. Brother Wu used to have a girlfriend, a female teacher in a high school in Beijing. He had a special liking for teachers, perhaps it was because when he was in school, he was infatuated with an English teacher who taught him. However, the female teacher's family was urging him to get married, and Brother Wu's father was very dissatisfied with this relationship. He felt that if Brother Wu wanted to find a girlfriend, he must find a woman with a strong background, so that she could help him in the future. Otherwise, he could only settle for the second best and choose a lady from a noble family in Inner Mongolia. After all, with their family's background, this was not a difficult thing. Thus, this relationship ended without a hitch. Perhaps the most important thing for Brother Wu was that he did not want to get married in a short period of time, or perhaps he was too rational and felt that his ambition was greater than love. However, what was certain was that Brother Wu had been working in the Qin family for several years. If he did not get a good report, then it would be a complete waste of time. However, the current situation of the Qin family made Brother Wu feel very pressured. This kind of pressure came from the outside world. He could only hope that the Qin family would survive this disaster and soar to the top. Then, his years of hard work would not be wasted, otherwise, it would really be a waste of time. The night was getting late and the road was not easy to walk on. He and Brother Wu did not sleep. One of them was driving while the other was chatting. Fortunately, they had a good rest yesterday and he was fully rejuvenated. The car at the back was quieter. Qin Xing, Chang Baji, and Hao Lei had a tacit understanding that they would not disturb each other. They took turns driving and Nangong slept quietly. At dawn, Bach finally found the small town in the no-man's land. Fortunately, he did not get lost. It had to be said that his memory was very good. They stopped 2 kilometers away from the town and began to investigate the terrain according to the plan. They drew a map of the town, and it would be best if they could find an insider. This would be very beneficial for tonight's operation. He and Brother Wu were resting while Nangong was in charge of the security, and so on. Qin Xing brought Chang Baji and Hao Lei along with him to take care of this matter. Hao Lei used to be a professional scout, and this was not a difficult task for him. Among the people that Brother Wu brought with him, there were 2 retired scouts. This made Hao Lei overjoyed, so he brought them to the edge of the town to scout. Perhaps it was luck, at noon, they caught a man and a woman who were out of the town. After a round of intimidation, they got more accurate information about the inside of the town. This man and woman were originally out shopping. The moment they stepped out, they could not help but find a place to have a wild sex. However, when they were in the middle of their passion, they were suddenly caught by Hao Lei and the others. The man was so scared that he almost went limp. Within an hour, with the hard work of Hao Lei and the others, they got what they wanted. For example, how many people were there in the town, the specific map of the town, who were the dangerous people that they needed to be wary of, where their targets lived and so on. Subsequently, Qin Sheng and the others made specific arrangements according to the information. Everything went smoothly and everything was ready. They just had to wait for the sky to turn dark. After the sky turned dark, the lights in the town gradually went out. However, there were still some lights that were lit up. Everyone ate something to fill their stomachs and prepared to take action in the early hours of the morning. There were 48 people in the town, all of whom were adult. Among them, there were 12 women. Some of these women ran for their lives with men, and some were abducted and sold. As for the other 36 men, only a small number of them committed crimes. Among them, about 10 had indeed been involved in murder cases, such as Uncle Li, who had been rooted here for many years. Most of them ran here to avoid trouble after helping others with their work, and some of them ran here to earn money. Although the town was small, there were many things involved here, such as the trafficking of rare wild animals, some transit stations for drug deals, and so on. There were also all kinds of gray deals and so on. Today, apart from the 9 people who had gone out, including this man and woman, there were only 37 people left here. Apart from the 11 women, there were finally 26 people left who could pose a threat. Qin Sheng and the others' plan was to get rid of those marginal people first, and then deal with the few targets that they had identified. The moon was bright and the stars were sparse. The night sky was very bright. Everyone was waiting for the arrival of the early hours of the morning. However, it was a little cold. After all, it was only the end of April. It was still a little cold in such a high-altitude place like the Northwest. Finally, when the early hours of the morning arrived, everyone was instantly energized. They split into 2 teams according to the plan and headed towards their target. Qin Sheng and Nangong were in a team, Chang Baji and Hao Lei were with Brother Wu and Bahi, and the rest were in groups of 2. In the dead of the night, the lights of the Jie Hotel had already been turned off. This hotel was about the same price as a 5-star hotel, so there was not a single guest today. Hence, the lady boss, Sister Fatty, took a shower and went to bed early. Her man was not around recently. He had gone to the northern borderline to deliver goods and would only be back next week. Sister Fatty felt a little lonely and was thinking of hooking up with some men in the town. Sister Fatty had just slept for a short while when she was woken up by the urge to pee. Just as she walked to the door of the bathroom, she suddenly heard the sound of the wind outside, and the window that was not closed properly made a loud noise. Sister Fatty, who was originally very timid, was shocked. She quickly finished peeing and ran into the room. She had only taken a few steps when she tripped. Sister Fatty was so scared that she almost screamed. At this moment, she realized how much she needed the man who was always scolded by her for being incompetent. Sister Fatty let out a long sigh of relief when she finally entered the bedroom. But why was the light in the room turned off? Sister Fatty subconsciously turned on the light. At the moment when the light was turned on, a pale face of a man suddenly appeared in front of her. Sister Fatty's pupils dilated instantly, and her heart raced. When she wanted to scream, she had already fallen to the ground with a thud. Only then did she remember Hao Lei's complaint. Damn it, why is he so fat? How are we going to get him out? At the same time, similar supernatural incidents happened in several other places in the town. However, the main characters and the plot were not quite the same. The same thing was the ending. Some of them were directly knocked out and tied up in their sleep. In this way, the few small teams had unknowingly taken care of most of the peripheral characters in the night. Of course, they had met with resistance, but these peripheral characters in the town were definitely not a threat to them. Next, it was time to take care of a few key characters. Qin Sheng and Nangong's targets were the group of people from the Jianghu restaurant. Chang Baji and Hao Lei's targets were Brother Huang and his two underlings. Brother Wu, Bahi, and the other three small teams were the other key and dangerous characters. The Jianghu restaurant was called Jianghu because Uncle Li had a martial arts dream when he was young. He always wanted to travel in Jianghu. However, when he entered society, he realized that the Jianghu he wanted was not the real Jianghu. But at that time, he had no choice. In the end, Uncle Li took the lives of a few people and fled all over the country. He had no choice but to choose this place and stayed there for many years. Apart from Uncle Li, there was a chef and two waiters in the Jianghu restaurant. One of them was in charge of collecting money, and the other was in charge of the kitchen. Tonight, as usual, there were not many customers. Everyone had already gone to bed. Everyone knew that Uncle Li was in a good mood recently. Why was he in a good mood? It was because he had killed 2 fat sheep and earned nearly $1 million. The rest was distributed to the people in the town. Uncle Li's room was at the deepest part of the 2nd floor. The others were outside. Qin Sheng and Nangong first sneaked into the room of the 2 waiters. Before they found out, they took action and killed the 2 troublemakers. However, the subtle movements here had alarmed the chef and Chief Li inside. Although Chief Li was very old, he still had some skills. And that chef, he was also not a simple and ruthless character. He had followed Chief Li to do a few big business deals. Uncle Li stood up quickly and asked, "Who is it?" The chef, who was outside, also put on his clothes and turned on the light. The two of them met in the corridor. Uncle Li frowned and asked, "Chef, did you hear anything?" The chef had thick eyebrows and big eyes. He had a beard and a greasy smell. However, his eyes were very fierce. The reason why Uncle Li had a lot of prestige in the town was that he had a group of people who were good at fighting. The chef was one of them. The other 2 had gone out to do something this time. "Uncle Li, did you hear it too?" the chef asked in a deep voice. Uncle Li nodded silently. For so many years, he had always been awake when he slept. He was afraid that someone would do something to him at night. After all, he had done so many bad things that he was always afraid of ghosts knocking at his door at night. The 2 of them walked out slowly. When they were about to walk to the door of the 2 waiters' room, they suddenly found a strange man standing at the staircase. This made Uncle Li and the chef nervous instantly. However, they were not afraid because they had encountered this kind of situation many times. Then, they heard the movement behind them again. They looked back subconsciously. This time, they saw a familiar person. After all, they had extorted 2 million from him a few days ago. How could they forget it? This time, Uncle Li knew what was going on. "I didn't expect it to be you," Uncle Li said with a smile. Nangong snorted coldly and said, "You should have thought of it. I thought you wouldn't come. After all, it seems that 2 million is not a big amount of money to you. You just treat it as a money loss to avoid a disaster. You won't entangle with us because of this small amount of money." "However, I didn't expect that I was wrong," Uncle Li said very casually. Nangong laughed and said, "But I am such a stingy person. Do you want money or your life?" Uncle Li asked straightforwardly. Nangong asked in reply, "Money or your life? You take it yourself." Uncle Li's answer was very simple. As soon as he finished speaking, Uncle Li and the chef rushed in 2 different directions almost at the same time. Uncle Li faced Nangong directly, while the chef faced Qin Sheng. Chapter 585. Even the pot. There must be an inside story behind why this town could exist for such a long time. It was not something that Qin Sheng and Nangong could know, and they did not care about it. Uncle Li and the others had stayed in the town for a long time and were used to the life here. Even if they returned to the city now, they might not be able to adapt to it. Moreover, it was not as free as it was now. Of course, some of them had left and some of them were new. Anyway, there was no lack of passers-by. Many people had suffered losses here, and some had tried to pick a fight with them. However, no one had ever been able to take them down. It was because they had never met a tough opponent. This time they were really screwed. Regarding what happened a few days ago, everyone thought it was an unexpected fortune. After all, no one had expected that someone would break into this town for no reason. Some people even chased them here for no reason. They even spent 1 million to buy 2 lives. However, the ending was even funnier. These 2 people turned out to be fat sheep. They spent another 2 million to redeem their lives. In this way, the town had earned 5 million. Since when was it so easy to earn money? Although the people in the town had seen more than 2 million before, it was the first time that they had earned 2 million so easily in a day. The people in the town had never thought that they would live a bloody life. Many of them could earn money but not spend it. However, they did not expect that the man and woman would come back here again. It was a big surprise. However, they would not surrender without putting up a fight. Even if they were to die, they would still fight. Nangong dealt with Uncle Li, while Qin Xing dealt with Chef. Both of them were not easy to deal with. However, Qin Xing and Nangong were not easy to deal with either. Nangong had recovered in 2 days. She was in a good state today. She definitely wanted to vent the bitterness and grievances she had suffered during this period. At the same time, in the building where Brother Huang was, a big battle was starting. Brother Huang and his 3 minions were playing with golden flowers all night long. It seemed that they were playing a big game. After all, they had earned an unexpected fortune recently. They were the targets of Chong Baji and Hao Lei. They were having fun and had no idea that someone had sneaked into the building. One of them went to the toilet for a while, and was tied up by Chong Baji directly. Inside the room, Brother Huang scolded, "Why hasn't Skinny Monkey come back yet? Did he go to the toilet to visit his father's grave?" "Boss, Skinny Monkey is a little hot these days. Maybe he's masturbating in the toilet. Who told you to take us to eat foreign horses after we finish the job? You haven't fulfilled your promise yet," the man with a scar on his face said with a smile. In fact, he was also a little anxious. Brother Huang said angrily, "Why are you in such a hurry? Don't we have a batch of business recently? Mr. Li asked us to wait for the guests to arrive before leaving." "Ha ha ha, I'm just saying," the man said with a bitter smile. He planned to find a place where no one knew him and start a new life after working for another half a year. After all, staying here was not a long-term plan. Brother Huang said impatiently, "Go and check on Skinny Monkey. Tell him to hurry up. We're still waiting here." The scarred man had just opened the door when he was sent flying back without any warning. He landed heavily on the table, and the cards and money on the table spilled all over the floor. The sudden change startled Brother Huang and the other man. What the hell was going on? Brother Huang was the first to come back to his senses. He immediately prepared to jump out of the window and run out to call for help. When they were still in a daze, Chong Baji and Hao Lei had already rushed in. Hao Lei took the lead and rushed over. He grabbed Brother Huang, who was about to jump out of the window, and threw him directly onto the floor. Brother Huang got up and was about to resist, but Hao Lei punched him in the chest. The pain made his face change suddenly. On the other side, Chong Baji was facing another man. He easily dodged the man's random punches and sent him flying into the wall with a kick. Then, he gave the man another kick on his chin, and the man fainted instantly. The knife-scarred man got up and pulled out a dagger from somewhere. He fiercely stabbed towards Chong Baji, who grabbed his arm and threw him over his shoulder, smashing him heavily onto the ground. The knife-scarred man groaned in pain. He wanted to resist again, but Chong Baji had already controlled him. His hands were tied quickly, and the next second his legs were also tied. On the other side, Brother Huang still wanted to struggle, but he was no match for Hao Lei. He was no threat at all. Hao Lei was using a standard grappling technique, and Brother Huang could only be captured. When Brother Huang's hands and feet were also tied, he asked loudly, "Who the hell are you? I scolded you. How dare you be so stubborn?" Hao Lei scolded and slapped Brother Huang's face. Didn't he know what kind of situation he was in? How dare he act so wildly at this time? Brother Huang was slapped, but he didn't give up. He was still scolding. Hao Lei didn't believe it, so he slapped his face several times until Brother Huang stopped talking. "Go on. Aren't you good at scolding? Go on," Hao Lei said sarcastically. "You didn't expect this day to come, did you? Think about what you did a few days ago. How dare you extort money from others? You're quite bold." Brother Huang's face changed slightly, and he fell into deep thought. He seemed to have thought of something. Could it be that the couple from a few days ago came back to take revenge? "I thought you were powerful, but you're just SOSO. You're just relying on the fact that you have more people. When you meet a tough opponent, you immediately become timid." Hao Lei spat at Brother Huang, who was on the ground, and scolded. Chang Baji was not surprised at all. He said casually, "Let's go to the next place." At the same time, the same thing was happening in a few other places in the town. The process was still different, but the ending was basically the same. However, they also suffered some losses. In the Jianghu restaurant, Nangong and Qin Sheng were fighting fiercely against Uncle Li and Chef. Nangong didn't expect this old man to be so good at fighting. Fortunately, she didn't underestimate him, or she might have been at a disadvantage. The old man's punches and kicks were powerful, and Nangong's attacks were also very fierce. Both sides had their wins and losses, and no one had the upper hand. However, as time went by, the old man's physical strength was slowly exhausted, and he gradually fell into a disadvantageous position. Nangong's attacks suddenly increased sharply, and she finally began to suppress Uncle Li. Nangong jumped up high, stepped on the wall, and kicked at Uncle Li. Uncle Li couldn't dodge it in time, and could only block it with his arms temporarily. However, he didn't expect Nangong's strength to be so great, and he directly took a few steps back. Nangong didn't stop there. He kicked at Uncle Li's back with a whip kick, which Uncle Li dodged in a hurry. Then Nangong kicked several times in a row, and every time he kicked, the speed was even faster. He completely treated Uncle Li like a sandbag. Uncle Li was already exhausted, and he felt that his bones had fallen apart. Finally, Nangong got close to him, turned around, and kicked at Uncle Li's chest. Uncle Li flew backward and fell heavily on the ground. He didn't have the strength to stand up anymore. He lay on the ground, gasping for breath. It seemed that he had given up struggling and let Nangong deal with him however he wanted. At the other end of the corridor, the battle between Qin Sheng and the chef was a little boring. Qin Sheng only cared about attacking fiercely, while the chef only defended and then looked for Qin Sheng's loopholes to counterattack. However, his strength was at most equal to Qin Sheng's, so he couldn't gain the upper hand every time. Qin Sheng was also smart. He deliberately exposed a few loopholes to the chef, and then took advantage of the situation to attack the chef. After the chef suffered a loss, he didn't counterattack. Even when he was knocked down, he quickly stood up and continued, as if his ability to resist attacks was not any weaker than Ba He's. This made Qin Sheng feel very bored. He didn't believe that this man could take a beating, so Qin Sheng chose to use all his strength to take down this chef, who was hiding his strength. After the Wing Chun martial arts got closer, Qin Sheng increased his speed and strength. The chef finally showed signs of fatigue, and after taking a few punches from Qin Sheng, he finally couldn't take it anymore. In a hurry, he used his knee to hit Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng took advantage of the situation and stepped back, making the chef think that he was going to dodge. Sure enough, the chef was fooled. He lifted his knee and kicked at Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng seized the opportunity and hit the chef's knee with his elbow. He seemed to hear the sound of bones breaking. The man was sweating profusely from the pain, but he didn't make a sound. When he landed on the ground, he didn't stand firm and staggered towards Qin Shing. Qin Shing used the same move and hit the chef's face with his knee. The chef's already blurred face became even more bloody. The battle between Nangong and Chief Li had already ended. Chief Li happened to witness the scene here and shouted, "Enough, we admit defeat." Qin Shing was about to continue to follow up, but after hearing Chief Li's shout, he subconsciously stopped in his tracks. Anyway, the man in front of him had already fallen to the ground and didn't continue to stand up like before. "Do you really think that after killing us, you can walk out of this town safely?" Chief Li smiled disapprovingly. He really didn't believe that these people would dare to kill him. Nangong laughed happily and said, "Then do you really think that we dared to come back here alone without any preparation? I don't believe it. How many of you can come here?" Chief Li sneered. Anyway, it was impossible for him to easily spit out the money that he had put in his pocket. Nangong squinted and said, "You will know in a while." When Chief Li was still thinking about how to understand, he was directly knocked out by Nangong. The chef over there saw the situation here and thought that Chief Li had been killed. He wanted to rush over crazily, but Qin Shing picked up a wooden stick beside him and put it down. As a result, the two people were also tied up. On the first floor of the Jianghu restaurant, it was very lively at this time. All the people in the whole town were tied up and dragged here. Some of them were still unconscious, while some had already woken up. However, their mouths were stuffed with all kinds of things, so they couldn't say anything. They could only mutter or communicate with their eyes. Everyone's eyes were asking the same question: what the hell is going on? Where did these people come from? And what did we do wrong? Many of them looked battered and exhausted. Some of their clothes were untidy, some of them were covered with bed sheets, and some of them were covered with blood and so on. There were also others who were on the way here. On Qin Sheng's side there were also a few people who were injured. He was slightly injured, and a few of Brother Wu's team members were also injured to varying degrees, but they were all fine. When Hao Lei and Chang Baji dragged Brother Huang over, he was instantly stunned when he saw the scene in the restaurant. At the same time, 100,000 horses galloped wildly in his heart. At this time, Qin Shing also came down with Chief Li and Chef. When everyone saw that Chief Li and Chef were also tied up, they were completely disheartened. This time, the whole town was wiped out. Nangong picked up a basin of cold water and directly splashed it on Chief Li's face. Chief Li instantly woke up when he saw the situation in front of him. Chapter 586. Double Return. 2 hours later, everyone in the uninhabited town was taken down. Although there were some twists and turns in the process and some people were injured, fortunately, the ending was not wrong. 26 men and 11 women, all 37 people in the town were here. The women were tied to the right side of the restaurant and the men were gathered on the left side. The group of people looked at each other. They did not expect that they would be taken down so easily. It was really unbelievable. Perhaps they were used to living a comfortable life and had forgotten the sense of danger. They deserved it. They just did not know how these people would deal with them. Nangong looked at Brother Wu and asked, "Is everyone settled?" "Everyone is settled, no one is missing. What do we do next?" Brother Wu answered truthfully. The team members he selected were all elite. Otherwise, they would not have been able to solve the problem in 2 hours. However, there were indeed some ruthless people in the town. Otherwise, his team members would not have been injured. Bach was obviously bored. He saw Sister Fat, who was hiding in the corner and trembling. He walked over with interest and was ready to tease her. Sister Fat was also one of the accomplices that day. Sister Fat had already recognized the man and woman who stayed at the hotel that night. She really did not expect that the instigators tonight would be this man and woman. Obviously, they had a strong background. They actually brought so many people back. If she had known this would happen, she would not have earned that little bit of money. Sister Fat tried her best to hide in the crowd to avoid being discovered, but she was still seen. She continued to curl up in fear. Who knew what these people would do to her? Sister Fat had recognized Nangong and Bach. Of course, the rest of the people in the town also recognized them. No one would have thought that it would be this man and woman. They did not come with good intentions. How are they going to clean up this mess? Bach squatted in front of Sister Fat with a smile, and reached out to remove the smelly sock in her mouth. He said happily, "Sister Fat, we meet again. How are you?" Sister Fat was always arrogant. In the town, she was not afraid of anyone because of her man's background. She often beat and scolded her man. However, when something really happened, she would be scared to tears. "Brother, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I'm really wrong. I won't dare to do it again. Please spare my life." Sister Fat could finally speak. She did not care about anything, and the first thing she opened her mouth was to beg for mercy. Bach deliberately said with a lecherous look, "If an apology works, why do we need the law? Sister Fat, how are you? That's not your attitude that day. I'm really in the wrong. I'll give you the money. I've made you vomit everything I ate. I'll give you the money with interest. Please forgive me." Sister Fatty continued to beg for mercy. He did not speak, and just looked at Sister Fatty lecherously. His gaze lingered on Sister Fatty's proud chest for a while. Sister Fat seemed to have understood something. She said weakly, "If you think it's okay, I can accompany you for a night. As long as you can spare me, I'm good in bed. My man often praises me." Hearing this sentence, Bach almost vomited. He was the one who teased Sister Fatty. How did it become Sister Fatty teasing him? This woman had really thrown caution to the wind. Just thinking about the way this woman would move around his body made Bach shudder. He directly pushed Sister Fatty, who was leaning against him, away, and then got someone to cover Sister Fatty's mouth. On the other side, the others were already laughing happily. They did not expect Bahi to have such a strong taste. Brother Wu added, "Bahi, if you like this kind, I will find you a lot of them when we go back to Beijing." Bahi scolded angrily, "Get lost." Nangong was a little unhappy. "That's enough. Let's get down to business." At that moment, Nangong asked someone to pull Mr. Li and Brother Huang out of the crowd. After that, he removed the socks and other things in their mouth. Nangong stared at the two of them and said, "We meet again. How do you feel?" Brother Huang and Uncle Li looked at each other. Brother Huang did not say anything. Instead, he let Uncle Li take the initiative. After all, Uncle Li was the most senior in the town. Uncle Li was used to hardship. He had experienced too many setbacks and tribulations. He had fallen more than once. He smiled and said, "I'm sorry. I didn't expect you to come back. This time we admit it. Say what you want." Qin Sheng and Hao Lei were bored and smoking. This time, they were here to help Nangong vent his anger. There was nothing else. They had to go back after finishing their business. Nangong said slowly, "It's not a big deal. It's just that I'm a little stingy. You blackmailed me for 2 million. I have to get it back." 2 million, we'll pay, Uncle Li said slowly. He was not as tough as he was at the beginning. At that time, he did not know the strength of this woman. Now that he knew, how could he not admit defeat? Brother Huang quickly echoed, "Yes, yes, yes, we'll pay. We'll give you all 2 million. Is that all you got?" Nangong thought it would be difficult to get the money. He did not expect that he would get it as soon as he asked. Chief Li looked around the restaurant. This was a desolate and uninhabited area. If he didn't pay, who knew what these people would do? He was already so old. It did not matter if he died. But what about the others? Uncle Li was not that kind of selfish person. Otherwise, he would not have such a high status and prestige in the town. Money is important, but life is more important. Uncle Li laughed at himself. Brother Huang echoed again, Yes, yes, yes. Money is important, but life is more important. We'll pay. The others seemed to see the dawn of hope. As long as they paid, they would spare everyone. Then hurry up and pay. Besides, many of them did not get any money. Hearing this, Nangong thought for a moment and said, "Since you say life is more important, then I can spare your lives. But I'll double it. 4 million to buy your lives. Cheap, right?" When Brother Huang heard it, he subconsciously shouted, "What the F***ck, why don't you rob a bank?" Bok did not expect that this guy would dare to talk back. He kicked Brother Huang's face. Brother Huang's blood-stained face became blurred again. It was really a terrible sight. Nangong said slowly, "It's illegal to rob a bank. It's not illegal to rob you. 4 million to buy all of your lives is already a good deal. Aren't you afraid that we'll take revenge on you after you let us go?" Uncle Lee sneered and did not answer the 4 million. Nangong stared at Uncle Lee and said, "If I'm afraid of your revenge, I won't come back to find you. If you want to take revenge, come to Beijing and find me. I'm afraid that you won't be able to return." Beijing? When Uncle Lee heard this place, he knew why this woman dared to say so. Most of them did not dare to go there, and they might not be able to get in. They might be caught before they arrived in Beijing. Uncle Lee sighed and said, "I admit it. What about 4 million? Nangong smiled and said. Uncle Lee thought for a moment and said, "I can't guarantee 4 million, but we'll try our best to gather as much as we can. Obviously, you can't wait for too long." "Okay, I won't bargain. Let's gather." Nangong shrugged and said. The task of this trip was finally over. Therefore, in the following time, Nangong handed the initiative to Uncle Lee and asked him to start gathering money. But Brother Wu and Bok were responsible for monitoring, in case he planned something with others. At dawn, whether it was cash, bank transfer or various payment methods, these people had gathered a total of 3.7 million. Uncle Lee was really ruthless. Although he and Brother Huang took the majority of the money, those who had taken the money that day returned double. Even those who did not take the money that day paid the money tonight. Otherwise, let alone Nangong and others, Uncle Lee would not be able to get away with it. They could only be cruel and pay the money. Now that the money was in their hands, they had vented their anger. This trip to the no man's land this time was not in vain. After tossing and turning for a night, everyone was tired. Everyone was tied up again. Nangong looked at the crowd and said, "Thank you for your friendly sponsorship." Someone shouted, "We have given you the money. Can you let us go now?" Brother Huang, who looked depressed, also said, "Madam, we have given you the money. Can you let us go now?" Brother Huang was really bleeding this time. If he had known this would happen, he would not have accepted this business. It was really a double loss. He did not know when he could earn back the money. Let you go? When did I say that I would let you go if you gave me the money? Nangong sneered. Brother Huang shouted angrily, How can you go back on your words? I am too free to talk to you about honesty, Nangong said disdainfully. Uncle Lee did not say a word. It seemed that he had already expected the result. As long as these people did not kill them, it would be fine. At this time, Nangong asked someone to bring in the man and woman who had been tied up yesterday. It was not until then that the crowd realized what had happened. They guessed that the information about the town was leaked by them. They stared at the man and woman fiercely, as if they were going to skin them alive. Nangong said to the crowd, "Let's go." Qin Sheng, who had fallen asleep, asked, "What are you going to do with these people?" Nangong glanced at these people and said casually, "Destroy themselves." Qin Sheng did not have any opinion on this. So be it. The crowd packed up their things. Outside, their car had already arrived. They got in the car and left without hesitation. As for these people, they might not meet again in the future. On the way back to the U-gate, Qin Sheng frowned and said, "Don't cut the grass by the roots. Aren't you afraid of causing trouble?" Nangong had already thought of a countermeasure. He said, "When we arrive at the U Gate, I will use my connections to tell the relevant departments in Gansu the specific location of this no man's land. At that time, they will naturally come to find us. I think many of them should have something to do and will spend the rest of their lives in prison. As for whether they can escape in advance, it depends on their ability." Qin Shing was relieved. That night they arrived at the U Gate. Zhong Shan had been worried about them, fearing that they would have an accident. After seeing the crowd, he was completely relieved. After resting in the hotel for a night, they drove to Dunhuang early the next morning and took the flight back to Beijing that had been booked. They finally arrived in Beijing in the evening. Their trip in the northwest finally came to an end. Although Nangong did not find Mr. Ding, he brought him back to Zhongshan. Chapter 587. The nemesis of Master Qin. When they arrived in Beijing, the Qin family had already sent a car over. They went straight to the Sihiyuan of the Qin family. Qin Chang'an had not come back yet. Yaya knew that Qin Sheng would come back today, so she got off work early and waited at home. At the same time, she told the kitchen to prepare dinner. Brother Wu had already arranged for the other team members to go back. He followed Qin Sheng and the others to the Sihiyuan of the Qin family. From now on, he would step into the big circle of the Qin family. As Brother Wu had said, he was already ahead of most people. When Qin Sheng was about to arrive, Yaya was already waiting at the door in advance, anxiously waiting. She was the only one at home now and it was really too boring. After seeing the two cars parked at the door, Yaya immediately ran forward, revealing a bright smile that made people feel like they were bathing in the spring breeze. Qin Sheng and Nangong got off the car first. Yaya quickly ran forward and said with her hands behind her back, "Brother, you're finally back. I'm so bored." Qin Sheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. He touched her delicate nose and said, "You little girl, how can you be bored?" Today, Yaya was full of youthful spirit. She had a ponytail and was wearing a white dress with a white shawl and small white shoes. She was a beautiful scene in the alley in the evening. The others behind her had already gotten off the car. Yaya smiled and waved at them. The others had already seen Yaya. Only Bahi and Zhongshan saw her for the first time. They could not help but be stunned. If Nangong was cold, this beauty was pure and cute. Why were there so many beauties in the Qin family? Brother Wu found Bahi staring at Qin Jing in a daze. He frowned slightly and touched Bahi with his hand, indicating that he should not look around and leave a bad impression on these small things. Bahi immediately understood and gave Brother Wu a thank you look. It seemed that he had to be careful in the future. As for Zhongshan, his eyes were very clear, without any distractions, just pure appreciation. After all, everyone loved beauty. Yaya only knew that Qin Sheng had returned to Xi'an. She did not know that Qin Sheng had gone to Gansu. She smiled and reached out her hand. "Did you bring me a gift?" Qin Sheng was prepared. He knew that this weird girl would definitely want a gift. Just like when he went back to Xi'an to bring a gift for Xian, he naturally had to prepare a gift for Yi. They were both his sisters, he could not be biased. So Qin Sheng smiled. "Yes, I will give it to you later." Yaya said happily, "That's more like it." Yaya and Qin Sheng were completely familiar with each other now. When they first met, she gave Qin Sheng the impression that she was simple and innocent. But now, she was a little cuter. Maybe this was the real Yaya. Qin Sheng hoped that she would always be like this. After Yaya was done with Qin Sheng, she greeted Nangong and said, "Sister Nangong, why do you look so pale?" Although Nangong was Qin Chang'an's adopted daughter, she did not have the blood of the Qin family. Therefore, she felt inferior in front of Yaya. After all, Yaya was the direct descendant of the Qin family, while she was just an adopted daughter. Ever since Zhao Anji and Yaya came back, Nangong rarely returned to the Qin family's Sihiyuan. She seemed to want to avoid this kind of awkwardness. She could also feel that Zhao Anji was guarding against her. Nangong said angrily, "Maybe it's because I haven't had a good rest recently." Yaya only knew that Nangong was on a business trip, so she didn't think much about it. She smiled and said, "Sister, take care of yourself." Nangong smiled and thanked him. She was not good with words, and she and Yaya were not the same kind of people, so she did not know what to say. Fortunately, Qin Xing held Yaya's hand and said, "All right, let's go in and talk. I'm already hungry." In the dining room, everyone sat down. Ba He sat next to Brother Wu and sighed in his heart. The Qin family, a rich and powerful family in Siju City, was really different. They were so rich. The decoration of this big sihiyuan was really enviable. The dishes were all served. Qin Sheng was not so particular. He gestured to everyone to eat their chopsticks. There was no need to avoid anything, they just had to fill their stomachs first. On the way, Nangong had already told Qin Sheng about Ba He and asked him how to deal with it. This kind of thing naturally did not need to go to her adopted father. Now, many things in the Qin family could be decided by Qin Sheng directly. When the dinner was about to end, Qin Sheng made arrangements. "Ba He, you have just arrived in Beijing. Let Brother Wu take you to adapt to the new environment first. We can talk about other things later." Ba He did not dare to be mischievous at this time. He just smiled and said, "Okay." His biological son looked at Brother Wu and said, "Brother Wu, about Ba He's daily life, you can discuss with him and let him work for you first." "Okay, young master," Brother Wu said respectfully. Qin Sheng looked at Chang Baji and Hao Lei and said, "Uncle Chang, during this period of time, you don't need to follow me 24 hours a day. You can go back to live with Brother Lei." Chang Baji nodded slightly. Hao Lei laughed. He was still used to living with his old partner. After all, they were old partners. As for Zhong Shan, Qin Sheng said thoughtfully, "Brother Zhong, you can stay here tonight. My father will come back later. You can talk about the details then." Zhong Shan smiled and said, "Thank you." Qin Sheng said casually, "You are welcome." After the dinner, Brother Wu left with Ba He. Chang Baji and Hao Lei also went back to the house not far away. The sihiyuan was quiet again. Nangong went back to the room to take a shower and change clothes. Qin Sheng accompanied Zhong Shan to drink tea and chat in the side hall. Yaya was bored and casually watched a variety show. She, who grew up abroad, did not seem to understand the jokes of domestic variety shows. In the end, she could only watch Inua TV. Qin Sheng and Zhong Shan talked about Mr. Ding. He knew that Mr. Ding had been traveling around the country since he left Beijing. Qin Sheng did not remember Mr. Ding, but Zhong Shan said that Mr. Ding had stayed in Xi'an for a period of time. As for why he went to Xi'an, Qin Sheng could roughly guess. After all, it was said that Mr. Ding was his grandfather's disciple, but Qin Sheng had never seen him. Maybe he did not go back to the old house during that period. If he met Mr. Ding in the future, he would definitely ask him. After that, Mr. Ding basically stayed in Inner Mongolia. Sometimes he was in the Huluanbel grassland, sometimes he was in the horse farm at the border of Mongolia and Gansu, and sometimes he was in the small courtyard in Gansu. To be honest, even Zhong Shan did not know where he went this time. Later, Qin Sheng talked about Zhong Shan. Zhong Shan did not say much. He only said that although he was only 36 years old, he had experienced many things that many people did not experience in their lifetime. At 11 o'clock in the evening, Qin Chang'an and Gongsun came back. Qin Sheng and Zhong Shan quickly stood up. After smelling the alcohol on Qin Chang'an, Yaya walked over and said unhappily, "Uncle, you drank again?" Qin Chang'an smiled awkwardly and said, "Just a little." Now, in the whole Qin family, the only one who could control Qin Chang'an was Yaya. Qin Chang'an really doted on Yaya. Although he also had a daughter named Qin Ran, because of those past events, the relationship between father and daughter was not very good. They only got along well during this period after Qin Shing came back. Moreover, Qin Ran and Ye had different characters. Qin Ran was more rational and seldom acted cute in front of Qin Chang'an. Ye was different. She was simple and cute. In front of Qin Chang'an, she was like a child who could not grow up. She always said and did things like a child, which made Qin Chang'an not know whether to laugh or cry. Although Yaya was Qin Chang'an's niece, Qin Chang'an doted on her as if she were his own daughter. He did a lot of things with Yaya that he had not done for a long time, such as going to the movies with Yaya, going shopping with her, visiting museums with her, and so on. No matter what strange requests Yaya had, Qin Chang'an would try his best to satisfy her and rarely refused her. A little every time. If you do this again, I will be angry, Yaya said deliberately. Qin Chang'an quickly coaxed Yaya and said, I know I am wrong. I know I am wrong. I won't drink next time. After that, Qin Chang'an stared at Gongsun next to him, and then said in a low voice, When I came back, I asked you if I had the smell of alcohol on me. You said no. This time, I am in trouble because of you. Gongsun smiled and shrugged. You can't blame me. I have advised you not to drink too much. Qin Shing, who was not far away, did not know whether to laugh or cry. He did not know whether it was because of the recent sudden reduction of pressure or the change brought about by Yaya's return. The old man's state was much better than before. At least, since Qin Shing came back for a long time, he rarely saw the old man in such a state. Zhong Shan was stunned. In his imagination, or in the image that Mr. Ding described to him, Master Qin was a calm, shrewd, and serious big boss. How could he see such a Master Qin now? Yaya seemed to hear their conversation, and said unhappily, What? Qin Chang'an quickly smiled apologetically and said, Nothing, nothing. Don't go to work tomorrow. Go to rest quickly. I have something to talk about. Yaya, who had won an overwhelming victory, was satisfied. After saying goodbye to Qin Shing, Nangong, and the others, she went back to her room to rest. Of course, she knew that her uncle had something to do. After seeing all this, Nangong, who was not far away, was very envious of the way Yaya got along with her foster father, but it was not what she would have. After Yaya left, Qin Chang'an became serious again. Zhong Shan thought in his heart, This is the real Master Qin. Qin Chang'an walked slowly into the side hall, looked at Nangong and Qin Shing, and said, You are back. Nangong said respectfully, Foster father, I did not complete the task you asked me to do. I am willing to be punished by you. What punishment? I have expected it. This time, you have worked hard. Have a good rest these days. Qin Chang'an gently patted Nangong's shoulder and comforted him. Nangong felt a little better. Qin Chang'an looked at Qin Shing again and said, I will talk to you later. Qin Shing was very calm and did not say anything. He knew that what he was going to ask was nothing more than the Lin family. Qin Chang'an finally looked at Zhong Shan casually and said, Are you that Zhong Shan? Zhong Shan smiled and nodded. I am honored to meet you, Master Qin. Qin Chang'an said in a deep voice, Old Ding asked you to bring a message to me? Zhong Shan nodded again. Qin Chang'an thought for a while and said, Follow me to the study. Chapter 588. Chapter 589. My computer broke yesterday. It was fixed today. The reason why Qin Chang'an attached so much importance to Zhong Shan was not that he knew Zhong Shan or felt like old friends when they first met. It was only because he trusted Mr. Ding. He and Mr. Ding had been friends for decades. The only one who could compare with Mr. Ding was Gongsun. Judging from his trust in Gongsun, it could be seen how much he trusted Mr. Ding. Putting aside the fact that Mr. Ding was the direct disciple of the old master, the relationship between Qin Chang'an and Mr. Ding was enough to explain everything. In the past few decades, they had experienced too many things together, such as setbacks, tribulations, lows, failures, successes, glories, and so on. There were too many. The capital carrier of the Chang and system was built by them together. They were both teachers and friends. Mr. Ding appeared at the lowest point of Qin Chang'an's life and retired at the most glorious time. What else did Qin Chang'an want to say to him? This was also why Qin Chang'an thought of Mr. Ding first in this special period. He believed that as long as Mr. Ding came back, they could work together again and definitely get through this crisis. However, Mr. Ding refused. Avoiding to see him was actually a refusal. However, Qin Chang'an didn't think that Mr. Ding would be so cruel. He was related to the Qin family by blood. How could he let it go? So Qin Chang'an wanted to know what Mr. Ding wanted to say. Or did he have something to say? Qin Chang'an's study was on the second floor. The entire left side of the second floor was Qin Chang'an's private area. This was a super large suite, which included a living bedroom, cloakroom, and private collection room. Outside was the study and a small reception room. The right side of the second floor of the main building was connected to the second floor of the auxiliary building on the right side. Now Qin Ran, Qin Xing, Qin Jing, and Zhao Anji lived there. Nangong's room was also here, but she probably wouldn't come back often in the future. Qin Chang'an's study was very large, with a lot of books, many of which were unique. There was a tea table next to it. He often sat there drinking tea and meditating. At this moment, Qin Chang'an was sitting in the main seat, and Zhong Shan was sitting next to him respectfully. However, he looked very relaxed and didn't feel too much pressure. Qin Chang'an said slowly, "Zhong Shan, old Ding really doesn't want to come back?" Mr. Ding said that it's not that he doesn't want to come back, but that he can't. If he comes back, it will only add fuel to the fire. Zhong Shan did not feign civility and told Qin Chang'an the answer directly. Qin Chang'an narrowed his eyes and pondered what Lao Ding wanted to tell him. First of all, from old Ding's words, Qin Haodong could tell that old Ding knew what had happened during this period, as well as the situation of him, the Qin family, and the Chang and system. It was not that he did not want to come back. It meant that old Ding wanted to come back. He did not abandon the Qin family. On the surface, it meant that old Ding had something he couldn't disclose, but the latter part of the sentence added fuel to the fire. It meant that this was a decision old Ding had made after careful consideration, and he knew a lot of things behind the scenes. Qin Chang'an came to his senses and asked, "What else do you want to say, old Ding?" Zhong Shan continued, "Master Qin, Mr. Ding asked me to tell you that times have changed, and we all have to take the initiative to change. We can't deal with the current things from the perspective of the past. When the storm arrived, no one could escape unscathed. If they wanted to protect themselves, they had to take the initiative to take a step back. It is not necessarily a bad thing to take a step back. If one step is not enough, then take 100 steps back. The price we should pay should not be indecisive. We should have the determination to cut off our wrist. We can't think about getting through it. Who can get through what has happened in the past 2 years? This time, it is not only our problem. Other interest groups are also experiencing the same thing. We should retreat when it is time. Time waits for no man." This time, Zhong Shan said a lot of words, which were all said by Mr. Ding. He told Master Qin exactly what he said. Of course, he did not dare to add any private information. Compared with the previous words, this one had more content, and it was similar to what some people had said. Qin Chang'an had to pay attention to it. Before he had time to think, he continued, "Anything else?" "A few words. Mr. Ding said that Qin Sheng is the key to break the situation. It depends on how you arrange him. And we should be careful of some people," Zhong Shan said thoughtfully. In the following conversation, Zhong Shan told Qin Chang'an about some people that Mr. Ding had told him to be careful of. Qin Chang'an had been listening. In the end, Zhong Shan also told him about himself. The two talked for a long time on the second floor. On the first floor, Qin Sheng was drinking tea and watching TV, waiting for them to come out. However, Gong Sun went downstairs first. Seeing that Qin Sheng was still in the side hall, he smiled and said, "Have you finished dealing with the things in Xi'an?" "Basically, only a little bit left," Qin Sheng replied with a smile. Gong Sun said casually, "That's good. Master Qin plans to invite the Lin family to stay in Beijing for a few days. He can't spare time to go to Xi'an, so he can arrange it in this way. Let me ask you, when is a suitable time?" Qin Chang'an was not a cold-blooded animal. The Lin family had raised Qin Sheng for so many years. It was reasonable for him to meet the Lin family and think about how to return the favor. Qin Sheng's matter was between Qin Sheng and the Lin family. He represented the Qin family, so it was different. Qin Sheng was not surprised. Moreover, he had this intention. He thought for a while and said, "After a while, when the things in Xi'an are completely over." Gong Sun smiled and nodded. "Then I will wait for your news. I will arrange other things." Qin Sheng smiled and said, "Thank you, Uncle Gong Sun." Qin Sheng joked casually. No matter what happened to the Qin family, he would stay there until he died. Gong Sun had watched Qin Ran grow up. He loved her more than anyone else. Now that Qin Sheng was back, Gong Sun treated him the same. So he was very concerned about Qin Sheng's life, but Qin Sheng did not know it. "I remember that you will finish the advanced course in Tsinghua University the day after tomorrow, right?" Gong Sun asked casually. Qin Sheng replied, "I didn't expect Uncle Gong Sun to know it. I just heard from Master Qin the day before yesterday that he plans to let you go to Shanghai next month. You will be completely responsible for the things in Shanghai. It is also a way for you to practice and then let your sister go back to Beijing," Gong Sun said directly. Everyone already knew about this. Anyway, anyone could tell Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng was surprised. "Let me go to Shanghai?" "Yes, so you should prepare for it. As for the details, when you arrive in Shanghai, your sister will tell you," Gong Sun said with a smile. To be honest, Qin Sheng was more or less surprised by this arrangement. After all, he had just entered the group and had not familiarized himself with the whole group. If he went to Shanghai in such a hurry, he might not be able to handle things there. However, it seemed reasonable. Going to Shanghai would not delay him from familiarizing himself with the group. As long as he brought Yen Pan and Wei Xiaoxia there, he could continue to collect information and so on. Now that he had entered the group, he could not wait for him to get used to it. Moreover, the things in Shanghai were probably coming to an end. After all, his sister had stayed for so long. Letting him go there to take care of the remaining things was indeed training. In fact, thinking about it carefully, Qin Sheng was quite happy. After all, if he went to Shanghai, he could meet a lot of familiar people, and he would not have to live apart from Lin Su. Most importantly, he could take time to deal with those things in the past. Therefore, Qin Sheng had already accepted this arrangement calmly. After they chatted for a while, they heard movement on the stairs. They turned around and saw that Qin Chang'an and Zhong Shan had already come down. Qin Chang'an said to Gong Sun, "Gong Sun, arrange a guest room for Zhong Shan. Let him stay here tonight." "Yes, I will arrange it now," Gong Sun nodded and said. Zhong Shan said politely, "Thank you." Qin Chang'an looked at Qin Sheng again and said, "It's too late tonight. You have been busy for so long. Go to bed early. We will talk about your things in the company tomorrow." "Okay." Qin Sheng nodded and was about to leave. At this time, Qin Chang'an suddenly said, "By the way, from tomorrow on, Zhong Shan will be your special assistant. You should be familiar with him." Qin Sheng was very shocked and subconsciously looked at Zhong Shan. Obviously, Zhong Shan already knew. He looked at Qin Sheng with a light smile. There seemed to be a lot of meaning in his eyes, which made Qin Sheng a little confused. Qin Sheng did not know whether this arrangement was arranged by Qin Chang'an or Mr. Ding. But since the old man had already said it, it meant that this matter was settled. Qin Shing could only accept it calmly. Then, Qin Shing looked at Zhong Shan and said, "Brother Zhong, I will have to trouble you in the future. I hope you will not hesitate to teach me." "You are welcome." Zhong Shan still responded so simply. After everything was arranged, Qin Chang'an went upstairs to rest again. Gong Sun also took Zhong Shan to the guest room. Qin Shing stayed for a while, and then went back to his room to rest. The next day, when Qin Shing got up, in the yard, Zhong Shan was already sitting there chatting with Qin Chang'an. They talked happily. Qin Shing smiled and said hello to them. After breakfast, Chang Baji and Hao Lei came over. Qin Shing went to work again. Apart from Yaya, who was a burden, he had Zhong Shan by his side. When he arrived at the company, Yen Pan and Wei Xiaoxia were already there. Qin Shing first introduced Zhong Shan to them, and then told them, "From today on, Mr. Zhong will be my special assistant. Mr. Zhong will be fully responsible for all my things. You will also be responsible for Mr. Zhong." Yen Pan and Wei Xiaoxia were very surprised by this sudden decision. Of course, even Xiao Yusin did not know about it. After entering the office, Zhong Shan directly started to work. The first thing he wanted to do was to help Qin Shing reorganize the members of the office, including Yen Pan and Wei Xiaoxia. They would be interviewed and reviewed by Zhong Shan again. Qin Shing had no objection to this. Since this was arranged by the old man, he believed that Zhong Shan was very capable. Moreover, he did not want to worry about such a small matter. Therefore, Qin Shing called Xiao Yusin and asked Zhong Shan to contact Xiao Yusin. After all, Xiao Yusin was more familiar with the whole company than anyone else. Xiao Yusin was a little confused at first. However, when he heard that it was arranged by the big boss, he immediately understood. He smiled and said that if there was anything, he could just look for him. Chapter 589. Clear division of work. Qin Chang'an's office was located on the top floor of Block A. It seemed that most tycoons liked to have their offices on the top floor. The view on the top floor was better. Standing on the top floor, one could see far away. Standing in front of the window and looking out, one would feel like looking down on all living things and would have a sense of boldness. Qin Chang'an's office took up 1/3 of the top floor. Other than that, it was the office of the Director General and 2 conference rooms of different sizes. The Director General was full of beauties. Qin Shing had found out last time that all of them were good-looking. Not to mention Xiao Yusin and Ding Yu, even Yen Pan and Wei Xiaoxia were great beauties. Qin Shing really wondered if the old man had a special requirement for good-looking people, or was it a rigid standard for the Director General? Although Xiao Yusin was the person in charge of the Director General, Ding Yu was in charge of all of Qin Chang'an's personal affairs, including the secretaries and assistants. Xiao Yusin was in charge of the group affairs. Everyone knew that they were jealous of each other, so they placed their bets. At first, Ding Yu had the upper hand. After all, she was the favorite of the big boss. Now that they heard that Xiao Yusin had a relationship with the Crown Prince, many people began to bet on Xiao Yusin. After Xiao Yusin finished talking with Zhong Shan, she took Qin Shing to the chairman's office on the top floor. They talked and laughed along the way. Xiao Yusin asked Qin Shing if he had adapted to the new environment, how were the 2 secretaries she had assigned to him, and if he felt that they were not suitable, she could get someone else, and so on. Qin Shing smiled and responded to them one by one. Then he asked Xiao Yusin about her work in the Director General. Xiao Yusin complained casually. Of course, she was dissatisfied with Ding Yu, and so on. But Qin Shing pretended not to hear it. Along the way, everyone in the Dong office saw that the 2 of them were chatting happily. Many of them were on Ding Yu's side. After all, rumors about Xiao Yusin's relationship with the Crown Prince had been spreading like wildfire recently. At the door of Qin Chang'an's office, Ding Yu, who was dressed in a light gray professional uniform, was waiting for Qin Shing. Her office was also here, and there were several secretaries and assistants. Dingyu was not surprised that Qin Sheng and Xiao Yusin came together. Xiao Yusin walked Qin Sheng to the door and left. She smiled at Dingyu. She still had to keep up appearances. Dingyu maintained a professional smile and said, "Chairman Qin, the chairman is waiting for you inside." "Sister Ding, your dress is very beautiful." Qin Sheng teased her casually. Any woman would like to be appreciated and praised by a man, especially a woman like Dingyu. Dingyu was somewhat surprised. It did not occur to her that Qin Sheng would say such a thing. Although she was very happy, she remained calm and said, "Thank you for your compliment, Chairman Qin." Dingyu did not talk to him deliberately. She turned around and knocked on the door of the office several times. Then she pushed the door open and said, Chairman Qin is here." In the office, Qin Chang'an, who was reading the financial report, said in a deep voice, "Well, let him in." Dingyu led Qin Sheng into the office. Qin Sheng casually sat on the sofa. Qin Chang'an continued to read the financial report without raising his head. Dingyu made Qin Sheng a cup of tea and left. Qin Chang'an was still reading the financial report and did not pay attention to Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng was reading the group's newspaper on the table to entertain himself. It was not until Qin Chang'an put down the financial report, walked over and coughed that Qin Sheng came to his senses. Qin Chang'an hurriedly stood up. Qin Chang'an waved his hand and said, "Sit down." Qin Chang'an was different in front of outsiders than in front of his family. Qin Chang'an at home was also different in the company. Although there were only two of them, Qin Chang'an's aura still made Qin Sheng feel a little uncomfortable. Qin Chang'an sat on the single-seater sofa, crossed his legs, and drank tea. "I heard from Gongsun that he already told you about going to Shanghai last night?" Qin Sheng nodded and said, "Yes, he did." "What's your opinion?" Qin Chang'an asked. Although Qin Sheng was his son and he could do whatever he wanted, he still had to respect Qin Sheng's opinion. Qin Sheng said honestly, "I don't have any opinion. I can let my sister come back and rest for a while. I can also accompany my grandmother in Shanghai. The old lady calls me several times a week." As for the relationship between Qin Sheng and the Zhu family, Qin Chang'an was not willing to get involved. Anyway, the Zhu family did not like him, and he did not want to be snubbed. "Since you don't have any opinion, after the graduation ceremony of Tsinghua University tomorrow, you can go to Shanghai directly." Qin Chang'an arranged directly. He naturally had other reasons for letting Qin Sheng go to Shanghai. Qin Chang'an followed and said, "No matter where you go in the future, take Zhong Shan with you. If there is anything you don't know, you can ask him to give you advice." "Okay, I got it," Qin Sheng said thoughtfully. It seemed that the old man trusted Zhong Shan very much. However, Qin Sheng did not know Zhong Shan very well at present, so he still kept his guard up. Qin Chang'an stared at Qin Sheng for a while. After hesitating for a while, he asked, "How are you and the girl from the Lin family?" Qin Sheng did not expect that the old man would take the initiative to ask about his relationship with Lin Su. Could it be that the old man wanted to see Lin Su? If so, it would be good. Recently, Qin Sheng had been thinking about this matter a lot. He was thinking about when to settle the relationship with Lin Su. There was no problem on the Lin family side. The Lin family could not wait to be related to the Qin family by marriage. However, Qin Sheng still could not figure out the old man's attitude. "It's good. Nowadays, we don't get together often, so I can't take care of her. This time I will go to Shanghai, so I can accompany her," Qin Sheng said honestly. Thinking of Lin Su, Qin Sheng was in a good mood. Qin Chang'an nodded silently. After a while, he asked, "Qin Sheng, what do you think of Song Ryu?" "Well," Qin Sheng was stunned. He did not know why the old man suddenly asked about Song Ryu. Was he going to force them to be matchmakers? If so, it would be really troublesome. So Qin Sheng replied, "It's good. She is different from most girls. She is like a mirror, reflecting everyone's shortcomings." Qin Chang'an wanted to say something, but he did not say anything in the end. He was afraid that Qin Sheng would be too resistant, so he directly changed the topic. Tomorrow is your graduation ceremony. I will go there. You should be prepared. Qin Sheng was surprised again, but he still nodded. He was afraid that he would meet a lot of big shots tomorrow. They should be the fathers of the students in this advanced course. In the end, Qin Chang'an asked about the Lin family. Qin Sheng also answered them one by one. He told the old man that Uncle Lin, Auntie Wang, and Xin Xin were on vacation in Sanya and would come to Beijing soon. When Qin Sheng returned to the office downstairs, Zhong Shan had already re-interviewed Yen Pan and Wei Xiaoxia. These two secretaries were directly arranged by Xiao Yusin, so Qin Sheng did not know much about them. But after getting along with them during this period, Qin Sheng was very sure of Yen Pan's ability. As expected, after Qin Sheng entered the office, Zhong Shan sat down and talked with Qin Sheng about the two secretaries. Yen Pan got through Zhong Shan's backer, and Zhong Shan appreciated her very much. But Zhong Shan rejected Wei Xiaoxia, and was ready to ask Xiao Yusin to transfer Wei Xiaoxia back. Qin Sheng thought for a while and replied, "It's not urgent. We will go to Shanghai the day after tomorrow. We may stay there for a period of time. I'm not sure how long it will be. You and Yen Pan will go there, and Wei Xiaoxia will stay in Beijing. During this period you can continue to choose the talents you need, and you can also pay attention in Shanghai. When we come back, let Wei Xiaoxia go back to the director office." After listening to Qin Sheng's arrangement, Zhong Shan smiled and said, "I have no objection. It's safer this way." A day passed quickly. Since he had Zhong Shan as his special assistant, Qin Sheng's work efficiency suddenly increased. This was because the documents sent by Yen Pan and Wei Xiaoxia were all screened by Zhong Shan. Zhong Shan felt that Qin Sheng could understand some of them, and did not need to pay attention to others. When it was almost time to get off work, Yaya ran to Qin Sheng's office early, waiting for him to take her to eat delicious food. After Qin Sheng came back, Qin Chang'an was released. Yaya, who was very bored after work, did not need to pester him anymore. Dinner was at a good Sichuan restaurant recommended by Yen Pan. Qin Sheng brought Yaya, Zhong Shan, Chang Baji, and Hao Lei. At the same time, he also invited Brother Wu and Ba He. Nangong did not come because he had something to do. Zhong Shan was now Qin Sheng's special assistant. Chang Baji and Hao Lei took on the roles of bodyguard and driver. Brother Wu was responsible for handling Qin Sheng's other trivial matters. Ba He became Brother Wu's assistant. It seemed that Qin Sheng's basic team had been established. The division of labor was clear. This time, Qin Sheng would be in charge of the company in Shanghai, and he would also deal with the trivial matters in Shanghai and Hangzhou. Therefore, Brother Wu and Ba He would also go to Shanghai with him. During dinner, everyone chatted casually. Qin Sheng had already informed everyone about the decision to go to Shanghai the day after tomorrow, and that they would stay for a long time this time. Chang Baji and Hao Lei did not have any objections. Of course, they knew what this meant. Qin Sheng could not forget about the things in Shanghai and Hangzhou. Now, he was not short of ability and resources, but he was short of time. This trip to Shanghai was probably to solve these things. Brother Wu and Ba He were a little surprised. They did not expect that Qin Sheng would go to Shanghai as soon as he came back, and he would bring them along. They were afraid that it would not be that simple, but they still agreed happily. After hearing about this, Yaya was obviously a little unhappy. She had just come back and now they were going to Shanghai, leaving her alone at home again. It was very boring. Qin Sheng smiled and comforted her. "When I go to Shanghai, sister will go back to Beijing. You will not be alone." Yaya did not act coquettishly, as long as there was someone to accompany her. After dinner, everyone went back home. Gongsun had already rented an apartment for Zhong Shan, and he lived in the same neighborhood as Chang Baji and Hao Lei. In this way they could communicate more in the future. The next day, at the graduation ceremony, Qin Xing only asked Chang Baji and Hao Lei to accompany him, while Zhong Shan went to the company to do what he was supposed to do. When Qin Xing arrived at the School of Economics and Management, the other people in the advanced course had already arrived. There was still one last class in the morning, and the deputy dean and a few professors still had something to say. After this last class, it would be the graduation ceremony. Chapter 590. Some were happy, some were disappointed. Today was the graduation ceremony, which was also the last class. All the students had arrived, and no one asked for leave. Everyone cherished the life in the past few months. Although it was not as fulfilling as college life, and their feelings were not as deep as when they were in college, they had built up a friendship after all. Although this friendship was mixed with the relationship of interests, it was inevitable. Moreover, most people came to this seminar to get to know more resources, didn't they? Basically, they were young people of the same level. If they could find like-minded people, they would have an innate advantage, no matter if they got along or cooperated with each other in the future. For example, people like Wei Li, Qin Xing and Han Su were weirdos. Although Qin Xing knew all the students in the class, Han Su was the only one who had a good relationship with him. Even Wei Li had special treatment. Han Su was even weirder. He was probably the only one in the class who came to be a bystander. People with like-minded people could get along well. On the podium below, the relatively young deputy dean was giving a speech, saying some words of encouragement, such as letting these young and outstanding talents take on more social responsibilities in the future, and so on. Several main teachers of this seminar stood next to him, saying different things. They were happy to see these young people become the pillars of this country and society in the future. At that time, they would also be proud. Some of the students below were listening carefully, some were whispering to each other, and some were even discussing where to get together in the classmate group. Of course, there were also small circles with good relationships, and they did not want to follow the big group. Qin Xing wanted to listen carefully, but Han Su next to him did not give him a chance. He was still so cynical, and all the students in the class would probably admit defeat. He did not know what else he had gained from this trip to Tsinghua University except to make a friend with Qin Xing. Han Su was playing a game of PUBG which was quite popular recently. He kept recommending it to Qin Xing and wanted him to play with him. Qin Xing had not played games for a long time, so he politely refused. Of course, it was not that he did not know how to play games. In the past, when he played Warcraft, CS, Dota, and so on, he had completely crushed all the opponents in high school. He was a crazy demon who carried girls around. Even a good student like Su Qin had been dragged by him to play many games. Finally, Han Su finished a game with the three beauties and won the chicken dinner perfectly. Then he put down his phone and asked in a low voice, "Hey, Lao Qin, I heard that the fathers of many classmates are here. Will your old man come today?" "I heard from him that he would probably come, but I'm not sure," Qin Xing said honestly. The old man had a lot of things to do, and it was not possible for him to change his mind at the last minute. After all, he was not an idler who had nothing to do. Han Su nodded and said, "You're right. You're from Beijing. You live nearby, so you should come." "Your dad isn't coming?" He really wanted to meet Han Su's father. It was said that like father, like son. What kind of father would have a son like Han Su? Hearing this, Han Su sighed and said, "How could I not come? My dad arrived in Beijing the day before yesterday. He said that he did not expect that I could persist until I graduated. I have to thank the teachers and classmates. Besides, how could a person like him miss such an occasion? There are many old friends among them." Qin Xing did not know whether to laugh or cry. It seemed that Han Su knew his father very well. That was right. For these young people, this was an integration of resources. For these fathers, it was also an integration of resources. It depended on each other's ability and means. The last class ended soon. The young deputy director bowed to all the students with several teachers, hoping that everyone would have a bright future and that everyone could create more value for this society. This surprised everyone and made them feel flattered. Qin Shing stood up subconsciously. He knew that this deputy director was very sentimental and idealistic. He was a serious scholar. So he also bowed to him and several teachers without hesitation. Seeing this, Han Su, who was next to him, also stood up in a hurry and bowed to the deputy director and the teachers. During this period, other students also stood up and bowed one after another. How could these young people, who had been immersed in society for many years with their parents or experienced for many years, not know this kind of etiquette? In the end, the deputy director asked everyone to take a short break in the classroom. Then they moved to a gymnasium close to the School of Economics and Management. At 10 o'clock, the graduation ceremony officially began. After the deputy dean and several teachers left, the classroom became lively. The familiar students chatted in groups of 3 or 4. After all, they came from all over the country. Although transportation was very developed nowadays, and they could go wherever they wanted, after leaving Tsinghua University, they would return to their busy lives again. It was obviously impossible for them to gather together like they did now. This was like the college life at the beginning. During the 4 years of college, they got along with each other day and night and did not feel reluctant to part with anyone. However, after graduation, they were scattered all over the country. No matter how familiar their friends were, how many times could they see each other in a year? Many students came over to say hello to Qin Shing and Han Su. They chatted casually or exchanged greetings politely. It was better to leave a deep impression on each other. Wei Li also came over to say hello to Qin Shing. I will go back to Hangzhou tomorrow. I really don't know when I will see you next time. But I think we will meet eventually. You will go back to Hangzhou sooner or later. This was the story between Qin Shing and Wei Li. Of course, others could not understand it. Qin Shing smiled and said, "You will see me soon." The smart Wei Li immediately understood what this meant and said thoughtfully, "Oh, it seems that I have to go back and prepare." Qin Shing smiled faintly and said, "At that time, I will have to trouble you, first young Master Wei." Wei Li was really not afraid of trouble. He was afraid that Qin Shing would not trouble him. At most, he could only help with the affairs in Hangzhou. He was not the main force. So he smiled and said, "You are welcome." After that, Wei Li changed the topic. "I heard that Master Qin is also here today?" Qin Shing was very surprised and said, "You are more well-informed than me. I was not sure, but you already know it." Wei Li could be said to be a know-it-all among this batch of students. Wei Li laughed and said, "Many students' fathers should have met Master Qin now. I also heard from my father that they just met in the dean's office." Qin Shing nodded casually. Wei Li's words contained a lot of information. It seemed that Wei Li's father already knew him. It should be Wei Li who told his father. At the same time, Wei Li's father also knew the old man, but he should not be familiar with him. They were just acquaintances, but he paid attention to him. At this time, other students came over to say hello to Wei Li. Only then did Wei Li and Qin Shing separate. Qin Shing chatted with several female students for a while. He was really low-key in the class. In addition, he was not that handsome, so the female students basically ignored his existence. Even Han Su got to know a few female students who were on good terms with him. For example, Wei Li was surrounded by many female students. However, he did not even have a good relationship with a female student. Fortunately, it was about to graduate. There were still female students coming over to say hello to him. Otherwise, it would be embarrassing. It was almost time. They moved to the stadium. The leaders of Tsinghua University and all the students' parents were already waiting there. Originally, the graduation ceremony was held outside. Unfortunately, the weather was not good today. It drizzled at dawn, so they had to temporarily hold it in the gymnasium. When everyone arrived at the gymnasium was even livelier than the classroom. The leaders of Tsinghua University were chatting happily with the parents. Many of the parents knew each other or were quite familiar with each other. They were busy introducing each other to new friends. However, everyone could see that there were several different circles in the gymnasium. For example, the circle where the vice president and the dean were in seemed to be a group of big shot. There were not many men who could stand and chat with them. The second circle was the circle with the vice president and other professors and teachers. There were more people here. The last circle was the parents. When the students of the seminar all walked into the gymnasium, these circles quickly dispersed and looked for their sons or daughters. After a short conversation, they quickly formed different circles. Seeing this, Qin Xing felt it was very interesting. Gong Sun had already noticed Qin Xing. He walked over slowly and said, "Qin Xing, the old man is waiting for you over there." Qin Xing had already seen the old man. He was chatting happily with several middle-aged men, including the vice president and the dean, as well as the old professor who had talked a lot with Qin Xing. As a philanthropist of Tsinghua University, the old man was also the leader of a famous domestic enterprise. In addition, the old man had power in Siju City, so he naturally had the confidence and qualification. Qin Xing directly walked over there. Before he reached them, Qin Chang'an had already waved to him and said, "Qin Xing, come here, come here." Qin Chang'an's voice was neither soft nor loud, but many students' parents had already heard it. Most of them knew Qin Chang'an. After all, Qin Chang'an was so famous and the Chang'an department had been in the limelight recently. However, they did not know Qin Xing. They were more or less confused and asked their children who this young man was. When they knew the young man's name was Qin Xing, they had already confirmed their conjecture. That was, this young man must have a special relationship with Qin Chang'an. Of course, there were a few people, including Wei Li's father, who already knew the relationship between Qin Xing and Qin Chang'an. After that, many parents asked their children about their relationship with this young man called Qin Xing during the seminar. As a result, some were happy, while some were disappointed. These students were more or less confused when they saw their parents' expressions. They also asked their parents about the identity of the man who had called Qin Xing over. After knowing his identity, they were shocked and at a loss. They did not expect that the man was Qin Chang'an, the big boss behind the Chang'an department. Some of them had already recognized Qin Chang'an. Anyway, at this time, everyone realized that Qin Xing, who was the most low-key and had the least sense of existence in the seminar, was the one with the most profound background among all of them. Chapter 591. Taking advantage of the situation, even the teachers and professors were not clear about Qin Xing's identity, let alone the students present. The only one who knew Qin Xing's background was the old professor. After all, he was an independent director of the Chang'an department, and his relationship with Qin Chang'an and the Qin family was not simple. Of course, there were one or two students who knew Qin Xing's identity. One was Wei Li, who took the initiative to approach Qin Xing. Both he and his father knew him. The other was a female student who was also from Beijing. She had greeted Qin Xing at the beginning of the semester. After that, they did not have deep contact with each other in the past few months. Every time they chatted, she was very polite, but she did not show too much enthusiasm. The reason why she knew Qin Xing was that her family and the Qin family had a good relationship. Her father had a good relationship with Qin Chang'an, so she knew Qin Xing. When Qin Xing walked to Qin Chang'an, many people stared at Qin Xing and whispered. As for what was going on in their minds, only they knew each other. After Qin Xing walked over, Qin Chang'an patted Qin Sheng's shoulder and took the initiative to introduce him as his son. Qin Chang'an was not afraid of anything now. After all, Qin Sheng's identity had been announced to the public. Therefore, no matter where he was, he would take the initiative to introduce Qin Sheng. Because from the day Qin Sheng came back, Qin Sheng would inherit his resources. This news was no different from a heavy bomb. When Qin Sheng entered this seminar, Qin Chang'an directly told the school leaders to arrange a person for him. The school leaders did not ask who the person was and thought it was just a child of Qin Chang'an's relatives or friends. After all, Qin Chang'an only had one daughter. Unexpectedly, they found out today that Qin Sheng was Qin Chang'an's son. Qin Sheng took the opportunity to greet the school leaders politely. After coming to their senses, these leaders praised Qin Sheng. The way the deputy dean looked at Qin Sheng was a bit thought-provoking. Maybe he did not expect that the most low-key student in the class was actually Qin Chang'an's son. Among them, the parents of two students teased Qin Chang'an with a smile. They had been wondering why Qin Chang'an had come to attend the graduation ceremony of the seminar today. It turned out that the rumor in the outside world was true. Qin Chang'an really had an illegitimate son. What was more surprising was that he had also attended this seminar. Finally, they could see him in person. Qin Chang'an was quite familiar with these two people. Otherwise, they would not have joked with Qin Chang'an. They were all outstanding people from private enterprises. Qin Chang'an smiled and said, "It's not a rumor. It's just that you don't know about it. My brothers and friends in Beijing all know that I had a son in the past, but he went missing later. Now he is just back, but he is definitely not an illegitimate child." Qin Chang'an's explanation made everyone more confused. After all, they were not Qin Chang'an's best friends. Naturally, they did not know Qin Chang'an's stories. After Qin Sheng greeted the leaders and uncles, he stood at the side with a smile and occasionally responded to their questions. Then he got to know the sons of the two uncles, who were relatively low-key in the class. One was called Sun Sijia, and the other was called Zhu Zhuan. It could be seen that in this seminar, those who were really low-key were those who had deep background. They did not deliberately try to curry favor with others. Only those who did not have powerful backgrounds would be active. The graduation ceremony began soon. The school leaders sat in the front row, while the parents and students sat in the back. The leaders of Tsinghua University invited Qin Chang'an to sit in the front row. However, Qin Chang'an smiled and politely refused, saying that he could not be special and that he should just sit in the same seat as everyone else. The graduation ceremony was very simple. The school leaders would give a speech, the representatives of outstanding students would give a speech, and the representatives of outstanding students would give a speech. Finally, the graduation ceremony would end. The vice president, who attended the graduation ceremony today, was also the vice chairman of the advisory committee of the School of Economics and Management. That was why he had to attend this ceremony. Other than him, the leaders of the School of Economics and Management were present. While the vice president was giving a speech, Qin Chang'an and Qin Sheng, who were sitting in the second row, were chatting in a low voice. "Did you make any good friends in Tsinghua University this time?" Qin Sheng answered truthfully, "Yes, there is one. His name is Han Su. He comes from Tianjin, and I get along well with him." "Han Jing has son? I saw that he also came today, so it should be him. He is not easy to deal with. It's just that Tianjin is a little awkward now. I'm afraid that his situation is not very good," Qin Chang'an said casually. He was more well-informed than anyone else on the scene. Qin Chang'an's eyes lit up. Qin Sheng frowned slightly. He had seen Han Su's father just now, but he did not have time to greet him. He was a slightly fat middle-aged man who always smiled and was polite to everyone. However, he did not expect that the Han family seemed to be in a bit of a difficult situation. He did not know whether Han Su knew or not. While Qin Sheng was in a daze, Qin Chang'an continued, after the graduation ceremony, take me to meet your new friend. Don't worry, the Han family's issue is not a big deal. It's just a change of leadership and a reorganization of resources. Qin Shing smiled and nodded. He was relieved to hear this. After all, Qin Shing did not want anything to happen to Han Su's family. Qin Chang'an asked in a low voice, "Are you familiar with Wei Zhuang's son?" Wei Li? Qin Shing was a little surprised. He did not know why Qin Chang'an suddenly asked this question. Qin Chang'an said thoughtfully, "I met him in Headmaster Chiu's office just now. I met him a few times before, but we are not close friends. He said that his son has a good relationship with you, so I asked you." How should I put it? I am familiar with him, but not the kind of familiarity between friends. It is more like the relationship between business partners. We know each other's purpose, Qin Shing explained truthfully. Qin Chang'an inadvertently glanced at the man with a goatee sitting at the right rear and said, "Like father, like son. It seems that this guy is the same as his father, good at currying favor and making good use of his connections. However, I have to say that it is also a kind of strength to be able to get to where he is today with such advantages. He is still useful to me. I know how to get along with him," Qin Shing said in a low voice. Qin Chang'an smiled and said, "That's good. I will go over to greet him later and help you push the boat with the current." It was said that like father, like son. Qin Chang'an and Qin Shing were similar. In the following time, Qin Chang'an and the old professor next to him, who was the independent director of the Chang'an department, chatted in a low voice. The leaders of the school soon finished their speeches. Then it was the speech of the outstanding student representative, Sun Sijia, who was the son of Uncle Sunday. Deputy Dean Su had looked for him before, but Qin Shing politely refused. Of course, he did not know that it was the intention of the leaders of the school. He felt that he did not have a sense of existence in the class, so it seemed a little unkind to take the fruit at this time. However, unexpectedly, Sun Sijia did not hesitate at all and directly agreed to this matter. Sun Sijia's speech was not very nutritious. It was more like chicken soup for the soul, which was naturally the speech that the leaders liked. Everyone did not take it seriously and just regarded it as a procedure. Finally, the outstanding student representatives went to the stage. Wei Li was naturally among them. He was not only familiar with the students, but also with the teachers. Zhu Xuan was also among them, which was not surprising. Qin Shing still did not participate, but Han Su was not qualified. The graduation ceremony ended like this, and his life in Tsinghua University came to an end. Next, Qin Shing would go to Shanghai, which would obviously be more interesting than his life in Tsinghua University. The leaders of Tsinghua University arranged a simple lunch. After all, this was the way to treat guests. However, these high-ranking tycoons did not go. No one wanted to delay each other's business. The leaders of the school were probably busy, and they had other opportunities. When the ceremony was over, Qin Shing and Qin Chang'an walked slowly to Han Su and his father. Qin Shing greeted them politely, "Hello, Uncle Han." Han Jinghe smiled and said, "You must be Qin Shing. I have heard a lot about you from my son. He said that during his time in Tsinghua University, you have taken care of him a lot. I thank you in advance. You have saved me a lot of trouble." Qin Shing said happily, "Uncle Han, you are welcome. This is my father." Qin Shing then introduced to Han Jinghe. How could Han Jinghe not know Qin Chang'an? He had seen Qin Chang'an long ago, but he did not know how to greet him. He was more or less flattered. "Oh, Master Qin." Han Jinghe did not mind that others were present, so he directly addressed Qin Chang'an in this way, which shocked Han Su. He was not stupid. From the way Qin Shing addressed Qin Chang'an, he immediately figured out that Qin Shing's father had a very powerful background. As for what kind of background it was, he did not care. If he cared, he would have investigated it long ago. Therefore, Han Su also greeted Qin Chang'an politely and called him Uncle Qin. Qin Chang'an had long been used to others calling him this way. He said happily, "When I went to Tianjin before, I always heard others talking about Brother Han. I did not expect to see you here today. I did not expect that the two of you would be so close. In the future, when I go to Tianjin, I will definitely disturb Brother Han. I hope you will not find it troublesome." "Oh, Master Qin, you are too polite. How can it be troublesome? I will definitely treat you well at that time," Han Jinghe said with a smile. Qin Chang'an stopped here and said softly, "See you in Tianjin." After that, Qin Chang'an and Qin Shing said goodbye to the father and son of the Han family and left. After Han Jinghe saw Qin Chang'an off, he suddenly patted his son Han Su's shoulder and said, "You bad boy, you did not come in vain this time. Didn't you like that car? Go buy it tomorrow." "Dad, you are wise and powerful," Han Su hurriedly flattered. He did not expect to have such an unexpected gain. Obviously, it was all thanks to Qin Shing. After that, Qin Chang'an walked to the father and son of the Wei family. They were not in a hurry to leave. With Wei Li's introduction, Wei Zhuang got to know many of his son's classmates' fathers. They also exchanged contact information with each other. In fact, with Wei Zhuang's current status in Zhujiang, it seemed that he did not need to deliberately curry favor with these things. However, he was originally such a person, and it had become a habit. Moreover, he had greater ambitions. Of course, he hoped to have more opportunities. Qin Chang'an walked over and directly greeted him. "Lao Wei, why are you still here?" Wei Zhuang, who was dressed in formal clothes, looked very young. It was said that there were many rumors about him in Hangzhou, and many beautiful women threw themselves at him. Wei Zhuang hurriedly responded, "Oh, Master Qin, do you have any plans at noon?" This could be considered as a proactive invitation. However, Qin Chang'an politely refused. "I have an appointment with an old friend." "Ha ha ha, then I can only ask Master Qin next time." Wei Zhuang did not feel that he had lost face. After all, he and Qin Chang'an were not at the same level. Qin Chang'an continued, "I just heard from my son that he has a good relationship with your young master." "Ha ha ha, I also heard that young people are like-minded," Wei Zhuang said conveniently. After Qin Shing and Wei Li met each other's eyes, they greeted each other's father at the same time. Qin Chang'an looked at Qin Shing and said, "Then you should contact each other more in the future and help each other." "Uncle Qin, this time when I was studying at Tsinghua University, Qin Shing helped me a lot," Wei Li said naturally, trying to leave an impression on Qin Chang'an. Qin Chang'an patted Wei Li's shoulder gently and said, "Young man, you are quite spirited. Okay, Lao Wei, let's make an appointment another day. We are leaving now." Qin Chang'an still solved the problem in a few words. After that, he directly left. He did not exchange greetings too much, because it was not necessary. At this time, several leaders and professors of Tsinghua University also came over. Qin Chang'an smiled and walked towards them. Then, accompanied by them, they left the stadium. Chapter 592. Qin Chang'an didn't stay for lunch, even though the leaders of Tsinghua University asked him to stay. He didn't want to bother them. They were busy too. Qin Shing left Tsinghua University with Qin Chang'an and said goodbye to the campus life. However, he had made an appointment with his classmates in the evening. After all, this would be the last reunion in Tsinghua University. Qin Shing didn't want to refuse. Qin Chang'an and Qin Shing were in the same car. Chang Baji and Hao Lei drove the GLS and followed behind them. They were going back to the Sihiyuan of the Qin family for lunch. When they passed by an alley, Qin Chang'an suddenly asked the driver to stop. All the cars stopped at the side of the alley. Qin Shing looked at the old man in confusion. Qin Chang'an explained with a smile, There is a braised food restaurant in the alley that has been open for decades. The taste is very good. When your mother and I were in Tsinghua University, we often cooked in this restaurant. Later, the boss passed on the skill to his son. The taste is not as good as before. I don't come here often. Today, I happened to pass by this restaurant and want to eat the taste. So let's have lunch here. Qin Sheng was a little surprised. He didn't expect that the old man and his mother both graduated from Tsinghua University. No wonder the old man had such deep feelings for Tsinghua University. His sister also graduated from Tsinghua University. It seemed that this was a kind of inheritance. Although he didn't study in Tsinghua University, he had stayed in the School of Economics and Management for a few months. In addition, he might study in Tsinghua University in the future. So his family of 4 would all be from Tsinghua University. This could also be considered a rather special kind of meaning. However, Qin Sheng didn't know what the old man said. It was not because the taste was bad, but because he didn't want to think of Qin Chang'an. Qin Chang'an and Qin Sheng got out of the car and walked slowly into the alley. Gongsun, Changbaji, and Hao Lei followed them. The others stayed in the car and waited. The father and son were dressed more exquisitely today. They didn't fit in with most of the people in the alley. However, they didn't look like outsiders anymore. When Qin Chang'an walked into the restaurant, the boss immediately recognized him. He greeted him happily. "Hey, Lao Qin, I haven't seen you for a long time." Qin Sheng was not surprised that the boss knew the old man. After all, he had heard a lot of things from his sister. The old man was nostalgic and often went to those old shops. It was an old habit of decades. Unless the shop was closed, he would go there every once in a while. "I heard that this piece of land is going to be demolished. I was afraid that when I came back, you would have closed the shop. So I happened to pass by, so I came here." Qin Chang'an sent a cigarette to the bald boss and said with a smile. The owner was a very dutiful, ordinary person. The apron he was wearing had long been stained with oil. He wiped his hands casually, took the cigarette from Qin Chang'an, and said, "Ha ha ha, you are quite well informed. I will have to demolish it sooner or later. However, I can't stop my craftsmanship. At that time, when I open another shop elsewhere, I will definitely tell you the address as soon as possible." Qin Chang'an teased, Yo, Lao Zhao, after this demolition, you will be a multimillionaire. You still have time to open a shop? As long as I have enough money to spend, it's fine. I don't have much ambition. I'm already so old. I can't just stay at home and wait for death to come. I have to find something to do, the boss called Lao Zhao said with a smile. He had suffered all his life and had long been used to it. He would definitely not be used to it if he was asked to enjoy his old age. Qin Chang'an found a seat casually and sat down. "Not bad. Lao Zhao, your mentality is not bad. Hey, why don't you introduce him? You only brought your daughter here before. This is the first time you brought someone else here." Lao Zhao looked at Qin Sheng, who was dressed brightly, and asked. He felt that this young man was spirited. At first glance, he could tell that he was a person who would do great things. Qin Chang'an said very proudly, "My son is called Qin Sheng." Yo, Lao Qin, you have a son. This is the first time I know that you hid it so deeply. I used to tease you that you didn't have a son and show off that I have 2 sons. It turns out that I was fooled by you, Lao Zhao said with some resentment. Then he looked at Qin Sheng and praised, "Young man, you are spirited. If I had a daughter, she would definitely chase after you." Qin Sheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He greeted the boss politely. Maybe it was because he had been criticized by others for many years. Nowadays, no matter where Qin Chang'an went, he would take the initiative to introduce Qin Sheng. Every time he said that Qin Sheng was his son, he looked like a rooster. Qin Chang'an laughed and said, "What's there to show off? Isn't it to satisfy your vanity?" "Ha ha, you old guy. The boss only cared about chatting with Qin Chang'an and didn't care about other customers. Moreover, there were not many customers at this time. After chatting for a while, he said, "Same old rules." "Same old rules," Qin Chang'an said casually. The father and son ordered 2 bottles of Arctic Ocean and drank casually. Qin Shing asked curiously, "Tell me about my mother. Is there a lot of people chasing after her in Tsinghua University?" When talking about the most important woman in his life, Qin Chang'an's eyes narrowed. He said happily, "Your mother, no matter when she was in Tsinghua University or later, there were a lot of people chasing after her. I really don't know how many generations of good fortune I have accumulated to be able to chase after your mother. Everyone thinks that I met your mother later. Only a few people know that we knew each other when we were in Tsinghua University and we were very close. But at that time, it was relatively conservative, so I didn't dare to confess to your mother. I can see that. Otherwise, my mother is so beautiful. If you didn't have this advantage, you definitely wouldn't be able to chase after her later," Qin Shing said disapprovingly. It had been more than half a year since he came back. Although he couldn't see that woman anymore after he grew up, his feelings for her became deeper and deeper. It seemed that she had been by his side for more than 20 years. Qin Chang'an was not angry at his son's joke at all. On the contrary, he was very happy. After all, this was the truth. He replied, "You have seen your mother's photos. She is no worse than those Hong Kong and Taiwan stars in the 1980s and 1990s. Even in this era, she is absolutely a great beauty. In the words of you young people, it is called retro beauty. Otherwise, how could you and your brother be so beautiful and handsome? That's because of my mother's good genes." Qin Shing curled his lips and said. Qin Chang'an laughed out loud and said, "You bastard, I haven't taken any credit at all. Then you go back and ask my sister. If she says yes, then yes," Qin Shing said. Qin Chang'an laughed from ear to ear and said, "You and your brother are now of the same mind. How can I win against you two? Alas, at any time, my family status is the lowest." The other customers in the restaurant were paying attention to the father and son, who were dressed very formally. They had never seen people dressed like this coming to eat in such a tiny restaurant. Such successful people seemed to be more suitable to appear in a 5-star hotel or a private club or a high-class restaurant. Soon, Lao Zhao brought 2 bowls of braised pork and 2 other side dishes. He had not seen Qin Chang'an so happy for many years. He didn't care about Qin Chang'an's identity, nor did he care about these things. He just thought that Qin Chang'an was just an old customer of this old restaurant that had been passed down from father to son. But he could be sure that the identity of this old acquaintance was definitely not simple. Otherwise, every time he came here, he would be a bodyguard in a luxury car. "By the way, if you go to Shanghai this time, plead for your grandmother. When will I go to visit her? It's been more than 20 years, Qin Chang'an suddenly said after eating a few mouthfuls of braised pork. Qin Shing was very surprised and said, Uncle and Small Aunt have now let go of that thing. I think grandmother definitely won't blame you anymore, but she definitely won't take the initiative to mention it. If you go to Shanghai directly, grandmother will definitely meet you." Qin Chang'an smiled disapprovingly and said, "Why didn't I think about it? But you don't know your grandmother's character. Maybe it will work if you say it. I guess it won't work even if your sister says it." Qin Chang'an felt guilty to the Zhu family, which was a hurdle that he could never get over in his life. Therefore, no matter how the Zhu family treated him, he felt that it didn't matter and he could bear it. However, now that Qin Shing came back, everything of the Qin family would be passed on to Qin Shing, and he might not be able to shelter Qin Shing from wind and rain one day. He needed someone to protect him and continue to move forward. The only one who could do this was the Zhu family. Therefore, Qin Chang'an was willing to put down his pride and take the initiative to reconcile with the Zhu family, no matter how harsh the old lady's conditions would be. Qin Sheng said thoughtfully, "Then let me have a try." When he left after lunch, Qin Chang'an took the initiative to leave his boss's phone number. He was afraid that he would really not be able to find this familiar smell in the future. After all, the familiar smell was getting fewer and fewer. At the same time, he also believed that the boss would not call him randomly. In the evening, in a 5-star hotel, Qin Sheng arrived before the appointed time. Maybe it was because they knew that there would be more students coming today. Those who wanted to have a small circle of friends also gave up this idea. Compared with the past, when Qin Sheng just showed up today, there were waves of students coming over to greet him politely. Everyone was afraid that they would miss this last opportunity. Among them were the two who were as low-key as him, but this time they also took the initiative to talk to Qin Sheng. In the distance, Wei Li, who was sitting on the sofa, smiled and said nothing. How could these slow people be compared with him? In the future, the relationship between him and Qin Sheng would only get closer, and they would never be able to catch up with him. Han Su, who was heartless, continued to play games with a few classmates. He was really a fool's fool. He did not do anything, but he did what he should do the most. Seeing that everyone was surrounding Qin Sheng, Han Su did not take the initiative to disturb Qin Sheng. It was not until Qin Sheng finished his work and took the initiative to walk over that Han Su was relieved to play the game and said, "Lao Qin, you hit it really well. I really did not expect that." Qin Sheng patted Han Su's shoulder and said, "Do we still need to talk about this between us?" Han Su said happily, "You are right. I should have guessed it long ago. If you did not have such a powerful background, would you dare to deal with Xueku and the others with me?" Qin Sheng said happily, "Let's not talk about this. Let's not go home until we are drunk tonight." Chapter 593. Profound Cultivation. The most famous social belle in the seminar was the only woman who knew Qin Sheng's identity apart from Wei Li. She was from Beijing and had a strong family background. Besides, she was beautiful and elegant. Therefore, she was the most popular and famous in the seminar. The only pity was that she was married. However, some male students liked the charm of this kind of young married woman, which could not be compared with a virgin girl. The woman's name was Yao Yao. She was working in a well-known domestic private equity company and was a senior partner of this company. Attending the seminar this time was the best way for her to get the most resources. Yao Yao was dressed very delicately tonight. She wore a gray close-fitting dress with a Tiffany pendant on her neck. Her high heels also added a lot of points to her. Before entering the hotel, Yao Yao was definitely the most dazzling star. Whether it was men or women, they all surrounded her like stars surrounding the moon. Even though some female students despised this kind of woman in their hearts, they still had to act like they were familiar with her on the surface. Among the male students, Wei Li knew Qin Sheng's identity. Among the female students, Yao Yao knew him. However, they chose different paths. Wei Li chose to take the initiative to make contact with Qin Sheng. He went straight to the topic and went straight to the goal. In this way, he quickly developed a relationship with Qin Sheng, which was much faster than others. Yao Yao chose to keep a respectful distance and take things step by step. Compared with Wei Li, her family was more familiar with the Qin family. Her father and Qin Chang'an were old acquaintances. However, they did not have much contact after that. After all, they belonged to different interest groups. However, if Yao Yao took the initiative to make contact with Qin Sheng, she would have more advantages than anyone else. However, Yao Yao did not do that. Because compared to Wei Li, she knew more about Qin Sheng. She knew that Qin Sheng had just returned to the Qin family not long ago. If she was too enthusiastic, it might make Qin Sheng feel conflicted and vigilant. This was not a long-term solution. Moreover, she was the wind vane in the class. Once she took the initiative to contact Qin Sheng, the others would follow up quickly. This was not good for her. Therefore, apart from greeting each other occasionally, Yao Yao and Qin Xing did not have much interaction. Even though she saw that Wei Li took the initiative to approach Qin Xing, she still behaved very calmly. The fact proved that her judgment was right. Qin Xing did not seem to care about Wei Li at all. On the contrary, he was very close to the heartless Han Su. However, after today's graduation ceremony, everything would be different, especially the appearance of Qin Chang'an, who was of great help to her. Therefore, no matter how many people wanted to build a relationship with Qin Xing, she could get twice the result with half the effort. When Yao Yao walked over, the others were muttering in their hearts. It seemed that even Beauty Yao could not help but take the initiative to build a good relationship with Qin Xing. Unfortunately, it was too late. Why didn't you pay attention to her when she was keeping a low profile? Seeing Yao Yao walking over, Han Su said in a bad mood, I'm going to avoid her. I don't like this woman. Han Su, who was a loner, naturally did not like Yao Yao, who was too scheming. Moreover, he had always liked girls who were simple and pure. This was the reason why the beautiful girl in the law school last time gave him a heavy blow. It was because he had misjudged her. Yao Yao had taken the initiative to approach Han Su, but Han Su was not willing to communicate with her at all. Although his family's background was much worse than Yao Yao's, he did not like her. This family background did not matter. Of course, Qin Xing understood Han Su. He was not surprised that Yao Yao would come to him. After all the classmates had greeted him and exchanged greetings with him tonight. Yao Yao, a social butterfly, did not matter. After Yao Yao walked over with elegant steps, she smiled very charmingly and said, Qin Xing, you really gave me a surprise. What surprise? Qin Xing pretended to be confused on purpose. He wanted to know what this woman would do next. As expected, Yao Yao was not an ordinary person. She was not surprised at Qin Xing's pretense at all. She chuckled and said, I'm not like others who contact you with a purpose. I just came here to say hello to a childhood friend. Qin Xing was a little confused. He frowned and asked, What do you mean? When Uncle Qin came to attend the graduation ceremony today, I was a little surprised why he would come. It turned out that the son of Uncle Qin, who was rumored to be in the outside world, was actually you, which shocked me very much. However, Uncle Qin was a little busy at that time, and my parents did not attend the graduation ceremony, so I did not go to disturb Uncle Qin. I was afraid that Uncle Qin did not notice me. Yao Yao said half-truthfully. She took the initiative to hide the important information that she knew Qin Xing's identity. Otherwise, there would be no need to talk to Qin Xing. Qin Xing said with interest, Beauty Yao, do you know my old man? More than that. Both of our families came from the courtyard of the planning commission. My father and Uncle Qin used to have a good relationship. However, later they took different paths. In order to avoid suspicion, they did not visit each other so frequently. When we were young, we played together. I often went to your house. Every time Aunt Zhu came, she would bring me delicious food. Let's not talk about what happened later. You and I both know what happened. After I grew up, I went to your house several times and asked about Uncle Qin, but there was no news. Later, I did not ask about you until recently. After so many years, I did not take the initiative to look for you, so I was afraid that you would not remember me. However, I did not expect that we would meet here. It is a pity that I did not know your identity at the beginning. Until today, after the graduation ceremony, I wanted to run to you at that time. However, I was afraid that you would think too much, so I have been holding back until now. Yao Yao continued to explain to Qin Xing. Basically, what she said was the truth, but she still hid the most important information. After Yao Yao finished speaking, Qin Xing was a little shocked. He did not expect that he and Yao Yao had such a relationship, but he did not believe it so easily. If you don't believe me, You can go back and ask Uncle Qin or Sister Ran Ran. What Yao Yao said was the truth, so she was not afraid that Qin Shing would ask anyone. Since Yao Yao said so, Qin Shing would definitely ask what he needed to ask. However, at this time, he could only say, "I believe you." At this time, Yao Yao took the initiative to reach out her hand and said sincerely, "Qin Shing, I am very happy to see you again. Welcome back." At this moment, when she said these words, Yao Yao was still very sincere. At least she could see this childhood playmate again. However, this sincerity only lasted for a while, and then it was replaced by her ambition and desire. Qin Shing also felt a little emotional. He held Yao Yao's hand and said, "Thank you, old friend." The two words, "old friend," made Yao Yao subconsciously take 2 steps forward and take the initiative to hug Qin Shing. The softness in front of her chest directly touched Qin Shing's chest at 0 distance. This action instantly caused an uproar in the entire banquet hall. No one expected that Yao Yao and Qin Shing could make such an ambiguous action, and Qin Shing actually did not refuse. This was too shocking. Many people directly opened their eyes wide and were dumbfounded. They almost shouted, "Oh my God!" Han Su, who had just picked up the wine glass, was directly stunned. He said, what's going on? What the hell?" Wei Li squinted his eyes and stared at Yao Yao. He sighed in his heart and said, "Amazing. As expected, she is not an ordinary woman. She really hid it well." He quickly guessed what was going on. That was, the Yao family and the Qin family must have a close relationship. Otherwise, Yao Yao and Qin Shing would not be so familiar with each other. However, he still thought Yao Yao was simple. Qin Shing did not expect that Yao Yao would take the initiative. He did not expect this at all. With the soft and fragrant jade in his arms, coupled with the refreshing fragrance of her hair, Qin Shing did not push Yao Yao away directly after weighing the pros and cons. After all, she was also an old friend. He might really be in love with her. However, he knew that Yao Yao was already married. In order to avoid being speculated by others, he did not want to leave any gossip. After patting Yao Yao's shoulder lightly, he took the initiative to take 2 steps back. Yao Yao also sensibly let go of Qin Shing. This ripple ended in this way. After Yao Yao let go of Qin Shing, she deliberately acted very sad and said, "Sorry, I thought of something in the past." Qin Shing shook his head and said, "It's okay." He did not think much of it. Yao Yao looked around and found that the students around were staring at her and Qin Shing. This was expected and also met her expectations. So Yao Yao took the initiative to say, "I'll treat you to dinner next time to formally welcome you back. Today's scene is not very suitable. I'm afraid that others will think too much." At least these things that Yao Yao showed now did not make Qin Shing suspect anything. He had to admit that she was really an enchantress who had become an immortal. Qin Shing just nodded. Yao Yao turned around with a smile and left, leaving others guessing about her. Actually, Yao Yao was not such a woman, but she became like this later. Although her family background was not simple, it was only the background of her maiden family. After she married her current husband, the background of her in-laws began to go downhill. Her husband had a high starting point in the beginning, but later his family declined, and now he had long been marginalized. In this life, he might not be able to make any big waves. Yao Yao was a relatively ambitious woman, so the relationship between the husband and wife naturally had problems. Her husband became more and more low-key, while Yao Yao became more and more active. Using the background of her maiden family, she began to manage her own life. She did not want to be unable to enjoy those things in the past after her father retired completely. After Yao Yao left, Sun Sijia and Zhu Ziyuan came over. In the seminar, they were the closest to each other. Today, after knowing Qin Shing's background, of course, they were willing to hang out with Qin Shing. After all, the relationship between their father's generation was good. In the future, they would become friends, which would be mutually beneficial. Sun Sija walked over, and the first thing he said was to tease Yao Yao. Qin Sheng, Beauty Yao is not simple. Don't be conquered by her acting skills. Qin Sheng said with a smile, "Oh, what's the story?" Chapter 594. Start making moves. There was something wrong with the previous chapter. During their time in the seminar, Sun Sija and Zhu Ziyuan did not have much contact with each other. They did not know Qin Sheng's background and did not care about these things. It was not until today's graduation ceremony that they began to treat Qin Sheng seriously. After all, there were not many friends like Qin Sheng. Sun Sija and Zhu Ziyuan were not familiar with Yao Yao. They had only seen her several times on various occasions before and heard a little about her. However, after coming to the seminar, Yao Yao was so high profile that they naturally had to inquire about her background. They actually got a lot of gossip. After all, this circle was not so big. If one did not want to be known, one should not do it. Sun Sija and Zhu Ziyuan planned to make friends with Qin Sheng in the future. Seeing such an ambiguous scene between Yao Yao and Qin Sheng, they immediately walked over, for fear that Qin Sheng would be conquered by this woman's acting skills. It would not be worth it if Qin Sheng suffered losses later. After Zhu Ziyuan sat down, he chuckled and said, "Tell us what happened just now. How did it feel to be hugged by Beauty Yao? I'm afraid that many people will know about it soon. Even if others don't say it, Beauty Yao will take the initiative to spread it." Qin Sheng could understand the logic behind it just now. After all, Yao Yao told him about her childhood. However, after Sun Sija and Zhu Ziyuan said this, Qin Sheng felt that something was wrong. He frowned and said, "Don't keep me guessing. Tell me what happened on Earth." Okay. Then we won't ask you about the story between you and Beauty Yao. Let me tell you about her first, Zhu Ziyuan said with a smile. He was no longer as unapproachable as he had been in the seminar. Next, Zhu Ziyuan and Sun Sija told Qin Sheng all the stories they knew about Yao Yao, such as the political marriage between her and her husband. Later, when her husband's family declined, Yao Yao, who was ambitious, abandoned her husband. Now they were almost strangers. Then there was the gossip about her and other men, which made her husband wear many hats and so on. After listening, Qin Sheng was surprised and said, "Is she such a woman? What do you think? Others don't know, but we do. Otherwise, how could Yao Yao become the social butterfly in our class? She knows how to use all resources. Ordinary people are no match for her, so we are afraid that you will suffer losses," Sun Sija said slowly. Qin Sheng glanced at Yao Yao, who was surrounded by several male students not far away, and said thoughtfully, "It seems that I have to keep a distance from her in the future. Actually, it's not a big deal. As long as you can refuse her throwing herself at you, it'll be fine. Don't get entangled by her. You can only cut off the relationship by paying a high price," Zhu Ziyuan kindly reminded him. After all, someone had already suffered losses. Qin Sheng chuckled and said, "You don't have to worry about this. I'm not the kind of man who will accept anything. That scene just now happened because I didn't know about it. If I had known about it earlier, I would definitely have stayed away from it. Actually, it's nothing. She just told me that her family used to have a good relationship with my family. When we were young, we used to live in the Planning Commission's compound. At that time, we had more contact with each other. After I left Beijing, she has been very concerned about me, so I am a little touched." Sun Sija smiled faintly and said, "I see. Beauty Yao is playing the emotional card this time. Anyway, thanks. I'll treat you to a meal next time," Qin Sheng said on his own initiative. No matter what, Sun Sija and Zhu Ziyuan did it out of kindness, although they also wanted to build a good relationship with him. Zhu Ziyuan shook his head and said, "It's just a small matter. You don't have to be so polite." After this little episode, Qin Sheng's interest in this gathering was greatly reduced. Most of the time, he was chatting with Han Su. Han Su did not ask about what had happened just now. After all, this was Qin Shing's privacy. There was no need for him to want to know everything. Even friends would not do that. Wei Li wanted to ask, but he did not know how to start. He was even more afraid that Qin Shing would feel disgusted. When the gathering was almost over, Qin Shing took the initiative to leave. He did not attend the second round, which was a small gathering. He even refused Han Su's and Wei Li's invitations. After all, he would go to Shanghai tomorrow, so he should rest early tonight. When Qin Shing left, Yao Yao took the initiative to walk him out of the hotel. On the way, she said a lot of things which was very appropriate. However, she did not know that Sun Xizhe and Zhu Ziyuan, who were both from Beijing, had already told Qin Shing about her. Her wishful thinking had failed. She was acting, so was Qin Shing. They were competing with each other's acting skills. Who was better? Qin Shing had been on guard against Yao Yao, but he also wanted to see what tricks she would play next. This reminded Qin Shing of what his sister had said before. After returning to Beijing, because of his identity and background, he had to be careful of anyone who took the initiative to contact him, no matter what kind of relationship they had. This reminded Qin Shing again. Qin Shing did not attend the second round, and Han Su was not in the mood. Knowing that Qin Shing would go to Shanghai tomorrow, and would stay for a long time, Han Su said that he would go to Shanghai to play with Qin Shing after a period of time. Qin Shing agreed with a smile. During this period of time when Qin Shing was not in Beijing, Han Su told him about Xueku. It was said that Xueku was directly taken home by his father. His mother's family also knew that he kept a college student outside. During this period of time, his family was in a mess. As for the thing between them, it might be left unsettled. Xueku could only take it as a silent loss. After all, Qin Shing and Han Su had done it very secretly this time. Xueku really could not find the mastermind behind it. The next morning, Qin Shing and his group took Qin Chang'an's private plane to Shanghai. Compared with the previous trip to Shanghai, there were many more people this time. In addition to Chang Baji and Hao Lei, Zhong Shan and Yujbak also followed. Yen Pan, who was recognized by Zhong Shan, was mainly responsible for work. Before leaving, Yaya was reluctant to leave. She complained about Qin Shing for a long time and muttered that she was left alone at home again. Qin Chang'an was afraid that the most troublesome person should be Qin Ran or Zhao Anji. She could only hope that Qin Ran or Zhao Anji would come back soon. Qin Shing smiled and promised her that as long as he had time or Yaya missed him, he would definitely find time to come back to see her. Only then did Yaya feel relieved. At 10 o'clock in the morning, the plane landed at Hongqiao International Airport. The Qin family in Shanghai had already sent people to pick them up. The leaders were the two men who arrived first after the accident in the alley last time. Qin Shing was already familiar with them and knew that they were responsible for some affairs of the Qin family in Shanghai. What Qin Shing did not expect was that Lin Su also came to pick him up. Originally, Qin Shing wanted to give Lin Su a surprise, but he did not expect that Lin Su would give him a surprise. He was afraid that his sister had told Lin Su about it. Summer had already come quietly. Lin Su was wearing a long black dress. Her figure was prominent, and her temperament was outstanding. She also appeared to be relatively cold, which attracted many people's attention. Chang Baji and Hao Lei had already met Lin Su. This was the first time for others to meet her. They did not know Lin Su's identity, and were even guessing who the beauty in the distance was. It was not until Qin Shing hugged Lin Su that they realized that it had something to do with Qin Shing. They seemed to understand that it was not surprising that Qin Shing knew such a beauty. It seemed that such a beauty could only be owned by Qin Shing. If it was someone else, they would definitely feel that it was a pity that a flower was inserted in cow dung. They had not seen each other for a long time. They even missed each other. Only missing each other was the most torturous thing. Qin Shing took the initiative to hug Lin Su and said, "Did my sister tell you that I'm going back to Shanghai today?" "Yes, she told me to give you a surprise last night." Lin Su hugged Qin Shing tightly and asked, feeling the familiarity. After that, she whispered in Qin Shing's ear. It was a very heartwarming scene. Qin Shing found it funny and said, "I wanted to give you a surprise." "Then I'll pretend that I don't know next time," Lin Su said deliberately, which made Qin Shing not know whether to laugh or cry. Qin Shing gently touched Lin Su's bare shoulders and smiled. "I'll be staying in Shanghai for a long time this time. I can spend some time with you." "Yes," Lin Su only murmured, but she was very happy in her heart, as if she had eaten honey. However, what Qin Shing said next made Lin Su blush instantly. That shy look was enough to make any man obsessed, because Qin Shing said, "Let's have a child." Only Qin Shing could act like a hooligan in broad daylight in front of everyone. Who asked this goddess who belonged to him alone? He could do whatever he wanted to her. The people behind him all kept their distance and quietly ate the dog food. Chang Baji and Hao Lei were already used to it. Zhong Shan and Brother Wu knew their limits, and Yen Pan did not say anything no matter how curious she was. Only Baklu, who had just joined the Qin family, asked rudely, "Who is this beauty?" Brother Wu glared at Bak. "Don't ask what you shouldn't ask." He almost said, "Curiosity killed the cat." Hao Lei did not think much and explained to the others half-jokingly, "Old Qin's real girlfriend, the future young mistress of the Qin family." No wonder. But to be honest, Qin Shing has good taste. "This beauty is really beautiful, she's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen," Bak said honestly. He did not think much, and what he said was the truth. Brother Wu kindly reminded him, "Bak, don't say such things in the future, just keep it in your heart." Bak laughed and did not think much of it. He was such a person, and it was uncomfortable for him to hold it in, so he just ignored it. Besides, he did not say anything. Yen Pan, who was beside Bak, heard Hao Lei's words and the doubts in her heart were solved. She used to be quite confident in herself and thought that her beauty would add a lot of points to the Crown Prince, but now she was somewhat disappointed. It turned out that the Crown Prince's girlfriend was so much more beautiful than her. They did not stay at the airport for too long and went straight to the villa at Zhongshan Golf. They would not go to the city today. Chapter 595. I'm getting nervous. There was a problem with the updated chapter last night. I rushed home to revise it in the wee hours of the morning. Everyone can read it again. Compared to the past, there were quite a lot of people following Qin Shing to Shanghai this time. He had to settle these people first before he could start on other things. Therefore, he was not in a hurry to enter the city. Instead, he took a short rest at Zhongshan Golf Course. In the future, he could also come here to relax on the weekends. After all, this house was empty. It would only be popular if there were people living here. In the study, Chang Baji and Hao Lei sat opposite to Qin Shing. They knew very well that Qin Shing had to settle those past matters when he went south to Shanghai this time. He could not drag it on any longer. He might not have such free time in the future. After all, he was no longer the Qin Shing of the past. Instead, he was the crown prince of the Qin family. There were too many things that were beyond his control and other important matters. Moreover, Gu Qingyang had died in order to protect Qin Shing. Qin Shing had always felt guilty. If he did not have the ability to take revenge, it would have been fine. But now that he had the ability, of course, he could not let Gu Qingyang wait for too long. He could not let others be free and unfettered for too long. "Old Qin, do you think Yan Chaozong knows that you're not dead?" Hao Lei asked thoughtfully. Hao Lei was in a good mood when he returned to Shanghai again. Other than Xi'an and the place where he served as a soldier, Shanghai was the city he stayed in the longest. Moreover, there was a woman he liked in this city. Qin Shing stood up, walked to the window and said, "How could he not know?" I'm afraid that he has already known about it. After all, what happened in Ningbo was so big. If he didn't know about it, he would not be Yan Chaozong. I guess even those people in Hangzhou know about it. Hao Lei was somewhat puzzled as he said, "Well, it's been a long time since the incident in Ningbo. Why haven't they made any moves? Are they waiting for us to take revenge?" Qin Shing lit up a cigarette and said, "Ha ha ha, if I were still that Qin Shing, I guess we would still be on the way to escape, and we wouldn't even know which city we would be in. However, heaven never bars one's way. God gave everyone a surprise. I'm no longer the Qin Shing I used to be. If they had the ability to do so, they would have killed the danger in the cradle long ago. They wouldn't have given me any chance to counterattack. However, they didn't dare to act blindly without thinking. Even if they wanted to touch me, none of them were willing to take the initiative. After all, the bird that takes the initiative will be the first to be retaliated against. Therefore, such an awkward situation is formed. Everyone wants to kill me, but no one dares to do it. They can only wait for others to do it." Regarding this matter, Qin Shing had thought about it long ago. After the incident in Ningbo became serious, Qin Shing knew what would happen next. He had been guarding against those people all the time. Similarly, the Qin family also kept an eye on those people. However, they did not take any action. After hearing Qin Shing's explanation, Hao Lei understood. He said directly, "Since they don't dare to take action, let's take the initiative." Qin Shing chuckled and said, "That's why I asked you to investigate the whereabouts of Yan Chaozong and Gu Xiaobo. You go back and discuss the specific plan with Yujbat. The other two men are responsible for the Qin family's affairs in Shanghai. If you need any resources or help, you can contact them directly. I'm just waiting for your result." Hao Lei nodded firmly and said, "Don't worry. I won't keep you waiting for too long." "Has Tang Shi recovered from his injury?" Qin Shing asked casually. He could not forget Gu Qingyang. Of course, he also remembered Tang Shi's kindness. Hao Lei smiled and replied, "I contacted him before I came here. Something happened at home, so he went back to his hometown a few days ago. I think he will arrive in Shanghai tonight." "That's good. Just let him follow you," Qin Shing ordered casually. When the three of them came out of the study, the others were still chatting in the living room. Lin Su pulled Yen Pan to talk about topics between women. She took the initiative in everything. Yen Pan felt a little inferior in front of Lin Su. She could tell that Lin Su was also a woman from a big family. This kind of temperament was not faked, but had been imperceptibly influenced by many years. On the other hand, Brother Wu was chatting with the two men who were in charge of matters in Shanghai. He had met them before when he came to Shanghai. They had also met up when they went to Beijing. They were not exactly friends, but they were acquaintances. Zhong Shan was casually looking at the furnishings in the villa. He had long heard about Zhongshan Golf. Today, he finally had the opportunity to come here. It was said that Zhongshan's feng shui was very good, so many rich people bought mansions here. After Qin Shing went downstairs, he immediately made arrangements. He and Lin Su would go back to the city in the afternoon. They lived in Shermao Riviera Garden. Chang Baji and Hao Lei lived in the neighborhood next door. So they had to arrange accommodation for Brother Wu, Bok, Zhongshan, and Yen Pan. So Qin Shing asked someone to rent 3 more houses in the neighborhood where Chang Baji and Hao Lei lived. Brother Wu and Bok lived together, and Zhongshan and Yen Pan lived alone. In the evening, Qin Shing and Lin Su went back to the city. The others also went back to the city. Zhongshan, Brother Wu, and the others stayed in the hotel for a few days. His sister had already arranged dinner. There were no outsiders, so Qin Shing and Lin Su went directly to the restaurant. When they approached the restaurant, they saw his sister sitting on the bed and talking on the phone. Qin Shing walked over and teased, "Sister, is that my future brother-in-law?" After Qin Ran hung up the phone, she said angrily, You brat, can't you say something nice? I've only been back for a few days, and you're already in a hurry to drive me out? Qin Shing said happily, How dare I? I'm just concerned about your personal affairs. Qin Ran stared at him and said, You should worry about your own affairs first. They ordered the dishes and chose the wine. Qin Ran and Qin Shing had already talked about many things on the phone. For example, she would bring Qin Shing to the company tomorrow and announce that Qin Shing would be the president of the branch in Shanghai. The current president, Sun Songfei, would be transferred to the headquarters in Beijing. She would also leave Shanghai in the afternoon and return to the headquarters. Wuhan would also follow her to Beijing. Life in Shanghai would come to an end for the time being. Qin Shing pretended to make a joke and said, Sister, it seems that you've been very busy recently. You've lost so much weight. I feel sorry for you. Qin Ran snorted and said, If you feel sorry for me, you should quickly carry the banner of our Qin family. In this way, I can worry less in the future. Qin Shing replied with a smile, Aren't I learning now? Qin Ran thought for a while and said, As for the matters in Shanghai, your main task is to control the general direction and control those professional managers. Secondly, you should be familiar with the financial business here. You don't have to worry about the rest of the matters. Those professional managers will take care of them. After you take office, the management of the whole company will be completely adjusted. They will transfer several competent subordinates from Beijing and Shenzhen to you. So you don't have to worry too much. Qin Shing smiled and said, It seems that you have arranged everything for me. Qin Ran reminded him softly, This is not my arrangement, but the arrangement of the old man. These few people are the rising stars that the old man liked. You should also polish them well. It's best if they can be used by you in the future. Qin Shing only needed to use good people. He did not have to worry too much about other things. Qin Shing nodded slightly and said, Don't worry, sister. I know what to do. Lin Su also knew about this matter today. Since Qin Shing had come to the company in Shanghai, she obviously could not continue to stay here. It would not be good if she did so. So at this time, Lin Su took the initiative and said, Sister, the matters in the company have been finished. You also have to go back to Beijing. So I plan to go through the resignation procedures tomorrow. Qin Shing did not express his opinion on this matter. Of course, he knew what Lin Su wanted to say. First of all, it was embarrassing for them to get along with each other. Second of all, it was not convenient for them to talk about it. Qin Ran was not that pretentious. She nodded directly and said, That's fine. After all, I just borrowed your help at that time. So what's your next plan? Have you thought about it? Lin Su looked at Qin Shing and said slowly, I haven't told Qin Shing about this matter yet. Our family is going to reorganize our assets and then move the company's headquarters to Shanghai. So there are still a lot of things to do in the future. Qin Ran was very surprised and said, Oh, that's great. She did not doubt Lin Su's ability. During this period, she had helped Lin Su a lot, especially in the field of finance. She had a lot of unique views. So no matter what happened in the future, Lin Su would be Qin Shing's biggest help. After the headquarters of the Lin family moved to Shanghai, they could take care of each other. This matter was settled. Qin Shing did not say anything more. Now the Lin family had decided to reorganize the family business with Lin Su as the core. Lin Chongding would completely retire, and Lin Chonghe would assist Lin Su. They would make use of the relationship between Lin Su and the Qin family to restore the glory of the family in the past. However, on the way back to the city today there was a small episode. That was, Lin Su told Qin Shing that she planned to move back to the previous house in Century Park. After all, she had lived there for several years and was more familiar with the surrounding environment. Regarding this matter, Qin Shing did not refuse directly. He directly agreed. The environment there was relatively better and it felt more like home. He also said with a smile that in the future, He would become a man living off a woman. What he got in return was Lin Su rolling her eyes. Soon, Qin Xing changed the topic and said, "Sister, have you talked to Grandma and Small Aunt? When I went to eat at Grandma's place this weekend, I already talked to them. Grandma was a little unhappy at first, but when she heard that you would come to Shanghai, she immediately became as happy as a child." "Ah, the old lady really likes the new and gets tired of the old," Qin Ran said impatiently. Qin Xing laughed and said, "Sister, are you jealous?" Qin Ran admitted generously, "How can I not be jealous? But to be honest, it's the best that you can come to Shanghai. You can spend more time with Grandma. Grandma is already so old, no one knows how long she can live." "Okay, I will go to Grandma's place at noon tomorrow." Qin Xing immediately agreed. Of course, he still remembered the old man's request. This time, he also prepared to talk to Grandma. However, he was afraid that Grandma would be too excited at that time, so Qin Xing was not sure in his heart. The dinner went on, but the news that Qin Xing had returned to Shanghai was already known by everyone, including Yan Chaozong. He had been paying close attention to Lin Su's movements, so when Lin Su met Qin Xing, Yan Chaozong also knew that Qin Xing had returned to Shanghai. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.